To the side.
So,
yeah. Hello? Stand in the right place. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I should probably say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, because we're not only joining from here in Trinidad. I know we have persons joining us from around the world, in the Caribbean, as well as the other parts of the world. So thank you very much for participating in today's workshop session entitled Python-Powered Analytics for Power BI. I am Dr. Leticia Addison. I am the Woman in Data Science Trinidad and Tobago Ambassador, and I'm very, very pleased to be here this morning to welcome you to our first hybrid workshop session that we are facilitating through the University of the West Indies here in St. Augustine, Trinidad, and also, of course, virtually. So welcome to the session, both to our in-person attendees and to those of you online. Thank you all for being here. So let me start off by giving you all an idea of the way we're going to do the session today. It's going to be a very interactive workshop session that we have prepared for you. So we hope to have it be an enjoyable session. It is not a lecture. It is going to be something that will be a training session for you to also get to know each other and to work in groups. For those of you who are not aware of the Women in Data Science organization or movement, I'll just give you a little bit of a history. We are part of a global movement which started in Stanford University in 2015 as a one-day conference and has grown tremendously throughout the world over the past few years. We are hosting all sorts of conferences, workshops, webinars, and really to inspire, motivate, support, and facilitate various activities that can get data enthusiasts really interested in the field in different ways. Now, I know we say we are women in data science, so it brings to mind most people think it's just for females, and no, we are not. While we do support girls and females in the field, we do elevate and have, of course, male and female mentors, and of course, male and female participants. We are a very diverse group. And we really want to advance the data-driven aspects of all of our communities across the globe. So from 2022, Trinidad and Tobago started its own chapter. And since then, we have been hosting a lot of online webinars and workshops. And we have moved to outreach in secondary schools as well. And of course, to in-person events like these. We hosted a forum last year at the University of the West Indies, etc. So it's really, really, I'm very, very happy to see this grow. When I first started as ambassador, I was extremely intimidated because I didn't expect or even understand how to reach this point. And today it's a very special occasion because we have some huge collaborators, and I have to really probably say my thank yous one time to the IEEE team, the Young Professionals team, who has also supported a lot of our activities. And we have a new collaborator this year, which is the Caribbean Telecommunications Network. They also have a youth group. So we have a lot of different persons in this space who also want to support all of you. And I'm very, very happy to have them on board. So I'm going to pass over to the chair of the IEEE Young Professionals team, Mr. Tariq Mohammed, and he is coming to bring you all some quick greetings before we get into the program. So thank you very much. So Tariq, over to you.
Morning, Leticia, and thank you. Okay, I'm in the camera. Great. So, morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a nice number in the room and over 100 participants online, actually. So this is the first time we've ever hosted a hybrid event. Did a lot of outreach. Well, actually, we didn't market it as much as I thought we would, but we had over 260 registrants from around the world, about 15 countries, actually, mostly in Trinidad, because many of y'all are based here, and most of the work we do at either WIDS TT or IEEE Trinidad and Tobago is operating locally. So does anybody know what IEEE is by chance? Raise your hand if you know what IEEE is. No. Wow. Okay. Well, so we're based in UE here today in the engineering block. IEEE stands for Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. It's a global organization. The banner somewhere here, it says, it's the world's largest association advancing innovation and technology. So we have a local version of that in Trinidad and Tobago. It's really just a group of engineers, persons in the ICT and other STEM professions coming together, doing a lot of voluntary work, doing a lot of research. In Trinidad and Tobago, we had an active branch a few years ago, but as with many other things during the pandemic, it kind of died down. So we're trying to revive that movement now. We've been having a number of events, whether it be in person or hybrid. In person or online. This is the first hybrid one, as I mentioned, that we're having. So I really just want to encourage you all to participate, engage, make full use of our two presenters today. We have Leticia and we have Adir from Women in Data Science, Trinidad and Tobago. We also have some persons from IEEE in the corner here doing registration and really just some good persons to network with. And of course, when we finish here today, make use of, especially the persons that are here in the room, the opportunity to network and engage with one another. So yeah, I think that should be about my time. And thank you. Just also want to recognize Ms. Gabrielle Johnson from the CTU Caribbean Telecommunication Unions, which is CARICOM. But you know, she will talk about all that, right? And we also have Ms. Vinita Singh here, who is the Women in Engineering Chair for IEEE Trinidad and Tobago, right? So, Vinita, you wanna say something? Just come and say something. 2 minutes. Come on. Let's do that for Vinita.
Hi, so as Miss Leticia would have said, sorry, Dr. Addy, we are a similar organization, but more geared towards the electrical and electronic division of our discipline. So we foster that engagement with both men and women to support women in engineering. So, I mean, we partner with like organizations to help with our cause, and we hope that we can help. Well, you all can help us help you so we can do more seminars like this so that you all can gain any skills that you all need. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so as Tariq said, I'm Gabrielle Johnson. I'm the Vice Chair of the Caribbean ICT Youth Network. So I'm going to be a little more formal, right, with my people. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to this exciting workshop this morning on Python-powered analytics on Power BI, hosted by IEEE and in collaboration with the Caribbean ICT Youth Network and the Women in Data Science TT chapter. As a recently established network committed to empowering young people through technology, the CIYN is thrilled to bring together a community of learners, professionals, and innovators who are eager to explore the power of data analytics. In today's digital world, data is more than just numbers. It's the key to informed decision-making, strategic planning, and impactful solutions. With integration of Python into Power BI, we have an incredible opportunity to enhance our ability to analyze, visualize, and interpret complex data sets in ways that drive real-world impact. Whether you're a student, a data enthusiast, or an ICT professional, this workshop is designed to equip you with valuable skills that are in high demand across industries. At CIYN, we believe in the power of continuous learning and collaboration. So this session is not just about technical skills, it's about fostering a community where knowledge is shared, innovation is encouraged, and Caribbean youth are at the forefront of technological advancements. So I encourage you to engage today, ask lots of questions, and make the most of today's session. Let's use this opportunity to embrace our data analytics capabilities and contribute to a more data-driven Caribbean. So thank you for being here, and let's get started.
Okay, so in order to kind of get you all started, I just want to first ensure before we go to our speaker today that we have everyone access the folder and the materials. So let me just get a show of hands in the room here and you all can give me a virtual show of hands, or if maybe the other way around, persons who have not been able to access, can you all let us know? So in the chat or in person, folder access? Okay, right. So we have one person there. We'll have you assist. In the virtual space, we have some of our moderators will send you the link again for those of you who weren't able to access. And as I said, it's not a lecture, so don't feel intimidated. We are all here to learn. So please ask your questions. We have persons roving around to assist here, and we will try our best to assist persons online who having any issues. And do know that this learning will continue after this workshop as well. If you have any issues and problems that you need to get sorted, I know some of you have Windows and Mac and different systems may have different issues. So let us know. That also helps us learn as well as we go along, right? So I would just like to introduce our presenter and give him the chance to give you a little bit about his background before we jump in. So this is Mr. Adir Suchit. He is one of our newest WIDS TT mentors, and he is here today to facilitate this session. He is currently pursuing his master's in data science, and he has a background in electrical and computer engineering. And I don't want to talk about his background. I'm going to pass it over to him for him to give you a little bit more about himself before he jumps into the session. So Adir, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you all. As Dr. Addison said, it's an interactive session, so it should be at a slowish pace, just so everyone could be familiarized with the technology. And feel free to reach out for any questions as well. It's really an interactive session, right? So I would be following along both on the presentation as well as on Power BI, giving a demo, and we'll pivot over into the Python segment, which would be the last segment of the seminar. My name is Adir Suchit. As Dr. Addison said, I have a bachelor's in electronic and electrical engineering, graduated in 2019, which is just last year. So yeah, I work as a business analyst. I love data. I'm a data enthusiast. And it's really about, I would say, in my background, yes, you learn a lot of stuff in school, but the web age is present to all of us, and we know with ChatGPT, it's even easier for us to query any questions we have, right? So it's really about, yes, you learn formally and informally, but just making use of all the tools that we have available to us. And it's really about continuous learning. So even though some of us here today may start off as a beginner, don't be afraid. With time and with effort, you'll soon be where you would like to be, right? So don't be afraid. It's very interactive. I'm not gonna bite. I'm a very polite and helpful person. So, feel free, right? So I'll just get into the presentation here. And I'll just like to give an overview of our agenda today. So we'll start with what is Power BI, and we'll go through the basics in terms of the dashboard interface, and also what do we use this tool for. Then we'll go into the overview of the interface, then the demo of the Power BI native functionality. So when we say native, we actually mean the visualizations that come with Power BI when we download Power BI Desktop. And afterwards, we'd look at the Python integration, which is an add-on tool on top of Power BI, which we would do some kind of statistical analysis and stuff like that, right? So we'll build everyone up, and along the way, feel free to ask any questions. Right, so we just have an icebreaker here, and you can scan this QR code. It's a Mentimeter URL. And it's a question just for the audience. So let's get to know our data family a bit better today. Which of these tools have you worked with before? Have you used Power BI Desktop, Python? It could either be Desktop, Jupyter Notebook, or even Google Colab. Or maybe you have used the both of these software, or neither. That's fine, right? But we're all ready to learn here. So we'll just give a couple minutes so everyone could give their feedback using the link or the QR code.
Minor interruption as you're scanning the codes. I forgot to do the safety briefing and also mention where the washrooms are. So first and foremost, safety briefing. In the event of any emergency, you could probably make your way to either of these two doors. If you're heading down this way, it would be the same route that you came through the stairs. Please do not use the elevator. If you're heading out this way, as soon as you come out the door, you take a sharp left and walk basically along this wall, and there's an emergency exit on that side, which will take you directly outside of the building. Washrooms. Male washrooms, the same steps you use to come up. It's in between this floor and the ground floor. Female washrooms, if you were to walk out through this door, walk as if you were going to the stairs. Right before you get to the stairs, you go to the left, and there's a little corner there with a door to enter the female washrooms. So yeah, sorry about about not giving that earlier, and thanks so much, Eddie.
All right. We just give our audience a minute again, just to make sure everyone responds to the Mentimeter link. All right, so I'll proceed to the, okay. Right, so our results, so 10% of persons have used Power BI before, Python 32%, both of these software 23%, and neither 35%. Okay. All right, so, right. Right, so our required materials, I believe we would have sent it out yesterday in our folder. It contains 3 files really. It's the download Power BI URL. So for the Windows users, you could either use Microsoft Store or you can use the URL in your browser as well, right? The Python download is only from the URL, and the Kaggle dataset is available both in the folder as well as the URL if you click on this presentation as well. So you have the option of both. I'll just briefly go into the folder just to show everyone what it looks like. So for those who are still trying to install, that's fine. We have available the PDF with the instructions. We also have the data sets. So either through Kaggle or through the Google Drive link, that's fine. And the resources. So these are really additional resources or key takeaways here after our seminar, just for continuous learning, and YouTube links and PDFs as well for us on our data science and data analytics journey. And the finished Power BI dashboard is here. Please don't click on this as yet. We will recreate this, but I'll show everyone what our finished article would look like. So that's fine. All right, and our agenda, which I just shared as well. Okay, so I'll start by explaining what is Power BI. So Power BI is really a business intelligence tool. So the BI in Power BI stands for business intelligence, and it's a tool that is used for data visualization, reporting, and interactive analytics. So yes, we work a lot with numbers, but the thing about it is we like to portray these numbers in a format that any end user or any audience member could quickly understand and get a grasp of. So we would really use Power BI to just show a visualization aspect of our numbers really. This tool supports hundreds of connectors. So mainly the popular ones are SQL database connections, you'd like to connect to Excel, maybe if it's a local file, or even if Excel is stored in SharePoint, that's fine as well. You can connect directly to your SharePoint site through Power BI. And even cloud databases, AWS, Azure, you name it, I'm pretty sure that Power BI has a data connection. So Power BI really is an effective tool when dealing with large quantities of complex data sources, which require a lot of data wrangling and modeling. So the beauty of Power BI really comes from allowing the users or the report builders to connect to many different various data sources. And the thing about it is we don't necessarily have to connect to one data source to create a dashboard. But let's say if you wanted to, you had a data set on movies, which we are interacting with today, right? And you wanted to correlate that to the weather for that particular day the movie was released. You have the capability of joining these data sets together. And that's the beauty about it, right? So you can always extend your data source beyond what you're given. And I'm sure that there would be connectors available to us to do this. So just to explain dashboards can be created and shared with team members. So we don't just want to create reports, we would like to share it with the audience, the intended audience, who we have created these dashboards for. But the thing about it is we also have a security element with it as well. We may create a dashboard that is confidential, but we don't want to recreate multiple dashboards as well. So what we would do is enable a feature called row-level security, which hides the confidential data from certain groups or certain team members. That way, we don't constantly have to maintain different dashboards from one particular data source. And what we'll get into closer to the second half of our seminar is the integration of Power BI with Python. We could also integrate with R as well. So those who are familiar with R, you all could also use R with Power BI. And lastly, there are different versions of Power BI. Today, we're going to use the desktop version, but there's also the Power BI service, the mobile app, and the report server. So Power BI comes in many different forms, but today we'll just focus on the desktop version. Okay, so you all could open the Power BI desktop. I will show here as well. So what we would do is click on Start, and this is persons with Windows. Power BI, you can search for Power BI and you can click on the Power BI icon. I have it opened already. So when we open the desktop application, it would render in this format. So I'll explain what we see on the slides, right? So we have the canvas. The canvas is the main tool really, where we drag and drop our icons on the visualization. So this is where all our visualizations will be housed in this canvas segment. So we see a sort of a dotted area, a dotted border. Everything inside this is our canvas, and there's just some extra padding along the outside of the canvas. We can't drop any visualizations there, but it's just to give us a sort of a holistic look of the report we're building. We have 4 options on the left-hand side, which are the report view, the table view, the model view, and the dark square view. So today we'll tap into each of these icons and we'll make use of it as well. And on the right-hand side, we have the filter pane, visualization pane, and the data pane. So we see really and truly our entire data set sits on the right-hand side, right, which is the data pane. And through that drag and drop feature, we could drag fields or columns onto the visualization pane or even the filter pane. So it's really a straightforward kind of graphical user interface where it's really just a drag and drop feature we'll be utilizing. Right. So I'd also like to talk about the applications of Power BI, right? So yes, dashboard building is important, but what is really the real use of Power BI? So Power BI is a enterprise-wide BI tool, which we can integrate sources from, well, diverse sources to create a unified view, right? So as I mentioned with the movie data set, combine that with a weather data set is really the functionality we have with Power BI. Maybe we are in a work setting and we'd like to look at our performance, or even as a student, we'd like to look at our performance, right? Varying the different courses that we will be studying for. We could use a KPI or that metric to analyze our performance. And maybe in a business setting, we really use KPIs for operations and also cost reduction as well. And financial planning. We can track revenue, expenses, and profitability for financial dashboards. So even with your personal expenses, you can use Power BI maybe as a budgeting framework where you can track, your spend and stuff like that, just to see a different representation. And we have the predictive side as well. So through the integration with Python, we're able to run predictive models as well as statistical analysis. And lastly, the collaboration. As I mentioned before, we can share with different team members, and also we could embed this in a web app as well. So we're not just limited to Microsoft Teams, but we could publish this or embed this in our website. Let's say we're building a website, we have the ability to do this as well. Okay, so I'll get into the demo segment now, where we'll touch on the data set, importing the data set, as well as looking at all the tables, looking at the columns in our data set, and we'll take it from there. Right, so we can tie back this interface with what we've seen in the screenshot in the presentation. And what I did mention is the data segment above. It's really the different methods of connecting to the data sources. And then what we'll also get into is the query segment as well. So many times we would have a data set. It may not be perfect, but we need to transform the data in some way to make it as close as what we'd like to have as our end goal. Right, so what we would do is we click on Get Data, and we see a whole host of data source connections, right? So we have Excel workbook, a SQL Server, a text CSV, and there's more. So I'd like you all to click on more, just so that we could really see the true horsepower of Power BI. So feel free to scroll down to see the different connectors available. You can even connect to Snowflake. There's a whole host of connectors, right? 100 plus. But for our segment today, we will just narrow down and focus on the text/CSV, which is going to be the second option here for us, right? So we click on this, and then we click Connect. Right. So automatically, I had the data set preloaded, but for you all who it may not direct you immediately, just find where you have unzipped your folder, and you can double click on that folder, and you'll see the host of CSV files and a README as well associated with the data set. So what I'd like to do is click on the third CSV. Seeing a couple members in the audience raising their hands. Yeah.
Who? Could you raise your hand again, please?
No, on Zoom, sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I'm seeing one person saying help. I'm seeing a few. Is everybody seeing the screen? One person said they couldn't see the screen. They're seeing the screensaver. Is everyone just confirm for me that you're all seeing the screen? Now, this is the part where we could take a few minutes just to make sure everybody is on board.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing everyone seeing the screen. Now, let me just hear some feedback on persons who have any problems with the installation of the software, because I know there may be some challenges. So you can let us know in the chat, right?
And the persons in the room too.
Yes, please let us know. This is the whole point of the session. We don't want to teach at you. We want you all to be part of the learning, right? So don't be scared, don't be shy. Just let us know. I know some people may have, has anybody experienced, okay, let me give you all some choices for issues, right? Any problems with signing into Power BI, any conflicts with like a school or work account? I know that's usually a problem. I've had that in the past, right? You have had.
We could also
Yes, some people have had that as well, right?
we could also sign in anonymously. So like for instance,
Yes.
I am not logged into anything. So you also have an option too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those people, you would have had it downloaded, but you just have a problem signing in. Most people had with Windows were able to download the software, right? Anybody inside the room or online has a Mac? Because I know there were some challenges with the Mac users, right? Okay. So the Mac users, there may be some different setup requirements for you all. So what I would suggest, there is a cloud version. We can send you those links in the chat and you will be able to do that. Of course, you could follow along with what's happening here and then you could also do that installation. Yeah, they have some other. So the persons who have Mac may have some different issues, right? And I know you all could help each other because some of you all may have Macs and downloaded it. Other than that, what else? Who else has problems? Come on, y'all. Y'all can let us know. Right? Okay, so those of you who have issues, follow along for now and send us an email after and let us know. And we'll be happy to assist you. Right? Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Right? Okay. Yes, in the room and online. Okay. All right, so I will toss it back to Adir and he'll continue. And just know that he's going at a pace that's slow enough for beginners to follow. And if you have any issues, just related to us, right? Okay, back to Adir.
All right. So just show from the audience and everyone could see this portal. Good. Right. Cool. Okay. So what we do is just double click or you can just press open. So we're going with the returns data set first, right? So click open. And we should see a portal come up here after it's preloading. Right. So the beauty again of Power BI really it recognized that this version of a CSV file, it's comma separated, and you can tell on the nature of the CSV file just by scanning the first 200 rows. So what we could do here is just click load. And by clicking load, it loads the data set into Power BI. And just see a couple loading screens pop up fast. Right, and we'll see the ratings data set show up on the right-hand side or the data pane. So everyone, right. Everyone good? Cool. Right, cool. Right. So we're going to do the same thing here again because the data sets are really all CSV files, right? So we don't necessarily have to click on more. It was just a overview of all the connectors available to us, right? So we click text CSV just from the drop down. And what we're going to connect to now is the tags data set. So again, same thing, click open, and it's going to load it the same way.
So at this step, is everybody able to access the data files to import? Any challenges?
Okay.
People online?
Right. So similar protocol here again, we click load. So we load the tags data set here. right? Again, shows up on the right-hand side or the data pane. And the last CSV file for today, it's going to be the movies data set. So click movies, open. Right, and we're not gonna click on load. What we're gonna do is click on transform data. Right, so transform data, let's give it a second to load fully. Right, transform data is gonna show us our CSV file in a tabular format, really and truly, right? So this portal, what we are seeing here is called Power Query. Power Query is a tool alongside Power BI and even Excel where we can perform our transformation on our data. So those of us familiar with the acronym ETL, extract, transform, and load, what we did previously with the ratings and the tags data set, we extracted it and we loaded it. We didn't do any transformation on it. So the movies data set now, we're actually going to do the full ETL process, extract, transform, and load. So this is the transform segment here. So by first glance of this movies data set, you'd see 3 columns. And in these 3 columns, you could ask yourself, if I wanted to extract the year fragment from the title, is that a valuable feature for me? Because if I don't do that, I'm left with the year inside the movie name or the movie title. But let's say I wanted to filter by specific years where that movie was published to cinema. I don't really have that feature available to me right now. So our first interaction with Power Query, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to extract that year in parentheses from the movie or title column. Right, so what we'll do is we'll click on the top where it says title, and that automatically highlights the entire column. And we'll see a whole host of functionalities we could perform with Power Query. What we're going to do is click on split column and by delimiter. So a delimiter is really a separating mechanism, which we would have seen with a CSV file, right? It's comma separated. It's really a format for us to separate different tables from one another. And in this instance, the parentheses is a delimiter. Right. And by clicking on delimiter, I am shown with these options here. So I'll also explain what these options mean as well. So we would like to split by the first parentheses. So Power BI automatically would have seen and illustrated to us that it has noticed the first opening parentheses as a character that we could split by. Now I'm just going to drag this portal a bit to the right. So the leftmost delimiter, as it says as a name, we're going to allow Power Query to split that parentheses with the first leftmost parentheses it sees. In our instance, this is not really going to be applicable because the year attached to the movie is not at the beginning of that movie name. It's at the end of the movie name. So we would not really select the leftmost delimiter. The rightmost delimiter I'll get to afterwards. And what it's showing up here is each occurrence of the delimiter. And each occurrence, as it says, each occurrence of that opening parentheses, Power BI is going to split this original column into multiple columns for us. Again, it's not a necessary feature. And if we just glance yeah, sure. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the split column. So it's in home. right? And you'll see split column by delimiter. Before I click there, if you all could see where my mouse is hovering here at this row, row 29, City of Lost Children. And there's another name in brackets, right? If we were to split by each occurrence is going to take this word in brackets and associate that to be a year, which we don't want. So the only feature really and truly that's available to us in this splitting format, it's going to be by the rightmost occurrence. And by the rightmost occurrence is going to take where the years are inside that parentheses, right? So just going back to the split function, I'm going to click on rightmost delimiter, and then I'm going to click on OK. Right, so we see right off the bat, it has extracted the year from the title column and created that into a title.to column as it's named at the moment. And that's fine. That's exactly what we wanted to achieve in splitting the year from the name. But we might say this is pretty much expected, what we wanted out of this functionality. But I'll just show you all one thing, right? So if we click on the drop-down icon on title.to, what it's going to do is preload the first few, however many rows for us. And it will show list may be incomplete. We're going to click load more. Just scroll down here. And we'll see there's actually one anomaly. It shows up as 2006-2007. So this is actually the only anomaly in the data set. But if I didn't click on that drop down just to peruse my data set, I would have gone ahead assuming that there's one year in every single row. So what we're going to do here now is try to fix this dash error that we're seeing, well, not an error, but that inconsistency we're seeing in the data set. So what we could do is unclick, select all, and drag back down to where we see 2006-2007. Okay. And essentially, what we have just done is filtered our data set into showing one row. But we have done this just for the meantime, right? So the reason why I did that is because in trial and error, what we would have seen, what I would have seen, is that this is not like an English dash. It's another character, right? So it appears to be that way. So by me filtering down here and getting this unique character, I'm actually getting that special way of illustrating that hyphen, right? So I click on it, I highlight 2006-2007, and I'm going to click Control-C, right, just to copy that. Now, before I move on, we're going to see on the right-hand side where it says applied steps. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I want some help. Okay, yeah, I am not able to load it the same way on my Mac because I'm doing it online. I don't have Power BI downloaded. So I don't know if anybody has experience using it with Mac. Sure. Yeah.
So on the right-hand side, we see applied steps. So Power Query tracks every single step that we use to alter our data set. So it really and truly gives us a history of all our steps that we would have used to transform our data. So far, we're on the last step, which is the filtered rows action, which we just performed, right? So what I'm going to do is copy this 2006-2007. Okay. Split column. Right. Okay, sure. So again, you all can follow along, right? So again, the functionality is split column, right? So we have that step recorded already. Maybe go on change type, right? One step before. So this is the original data set. And what we're going to click on is the split column icon and by delimiter. I'll just insert it as Power BI is just throwing a warning at me. Sorry, let me just make sure it's the right column. Sorry. Split column by delimiter. Insert step. Right, and we're seeing the open parentheses, and what we're going to click on is actually the rightmost delimiter. That's what we're going to do to separate the year from the movie title. All right, so just going back onto our steps, just to make sure nothing has changed. Right, so I filtered one row, the 2006-2007, again, highlighting it, copy. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to click on replace values. So what replace values does, as any name, you can find a certain row or many rows, and it's basically the similar functionality when in Excel, find and replace. So that's essentially what we're going to do with this functionality here, right? So we click on replace values, insert. And the reason why it says insert is because there's another step below it, right? Which we will delete afterwards. So we're gonna put in our 2006-2007, and just an assumption, maybe we say if this movie overlapped into multiple years, we'll take the first year, which is present in the range. So we're gonna replace 2006-2007 with 2006. And then click OK. Right. What I'm going to do now is, again, so everyone followed that. Good. Sorry. Okay. So what we're going to do is, right. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Sure. No problem. So I'll go back a couple steps, right? So after we split the column by delimiter, we are presented with the other column, which is going to be the year separated from the movie title. Everyone in the chat, let me know if you all are comfortable with that step. Right. Yeah. Right.
And let's say there's a typo. So I'm just talking about in real life situations where you're using financial data, let's say sales figures or so. Is there any way when, let's say you're trying to fix an error or make an assumption, is there any way that the user could determine that? Because you are assuming it's 2006. But what if it's really 2007? So would that not be like a discrepancy in the data information on Power BI?
Right.
I'm just thinking from a financial, like a sales revenue report, or something like that. What
Right.
is your view on that?
Yeah. So that's actually a really good question, right? So the assumption is that if we don't know that inconsistency, and let's say we were to continue along with the steps, we wouldn't know there's an inconsistency there, right? So when you follow along with the steps, you actually, so I can show you here as well, right? Let's see, oh, I'm kind of skipping ahead. I wanted to split the column again by delimiter. And this time I want to separate it with the closing parentheses. Because it's only one occurrence of the parentheses here, we can select any one of the options because it's both the rightmost, the leftmost, and each occurrence because it's just one occurrence of it. So I click OK. And actually, when we load it, if you click close and apply, I don't want to go through all the steps just to erase it. Power Query is going to throw an error at you. And the error is that inconsistency, because essentially what it's going to do, if you see on the top here, it says ABC, meaning that it's a text column. But really and truly, you would want it in a numerical column, a whole number, right? So from me just trialing and error, I would have seen that, right? So it's really and truly just about going through the data set, exploring the errors, and then going back a couple steps and fixing it along the way. Because really and truly, no one would know the inconsistencies of our data, right? But just for the sake of the demo, I skipped that one, right? So, okay, cool. So just gonna go back a couple of steps.
Yes, so Adir, I think someone in the chat wanted to go back. Yes, a few steps. Can you let us know where you having the issue so he can go back?
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right. Right, sure.
Okay, so we're taking a short pause here. And he will redo. So Adir, you can go back and just redo one of those steps there so we could make sure they all are seeing.
Right. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to go back to the beginning. So this step here is actually when we click the transform data option, when we loaded the movies CSV file, we are presented with this preview. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the title column, and by clicking on that, it automatically highlights the entire column for us. In the icons section here, we're going to click on split column. Split column gives us a host of options, but we're going to click on the first one, which is by delimiter. And by delimiter is going to separate any character for us that exists in that existing column. So I click on by delimiter. And Ishmael, you let me know if everyone is comfortable with that. Thumbs up in the chat. Smiley face.
Someone said, I replace the value. How do I see the rest of the list?
All right, so we're getting there, right?
Yeah.
So they are a bit ahead. So that's fine. We get there. Just to make sure everyone is good so far, right? Cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So what we're going to do is click on the rightmost delimiter. I'll just explain again, just very briefly. The reason why we're doing that is because in the movie names, not just the year alone has the parentheses surrounding it. There are other movie titles that have parentheses surrounding it as well, right? So if I click on any other option, it really and truly is not going to segregate that year from the movie title for me, because I really want to focus on the last opening parentheses, and that is equivalent to the rightmost delimiter selection. Everyone good with that explanation? All right, cool. Right, so moving ahead now. Right, and Ishmael, let me know if all clear. Okay.
Yeah, so far so good.
Right. So as we were on before, and a member of our audience also asks, and really good question, right? So let's say it's the first time we're looking at this data set, we really would not know the intricacies of it. Because I really went ahead and I completed this dashboard, I saw that there was a nuance in one of the rows. But if you didn't notice that, that's fine. But really and truly, it was the same thing for me when the first instance. I had to scroll all the way down in that data set, right? That by selecting this drop down here. And really and truly, if you're dealing with a larger data source, Power Query may not always load all the rows. So we may not always be fortunate to see and spot where these discrepancies occur, right? So what we're going to do now is click on Load More and click on Select All. And we're going to scroll down, looking for that 2006-2007. And I'll just explain what we're doing here. We're filtering the entire data set only to 1 year range, or 1 row really. And that is the 2006-2007. We want to get this here because we want to copy and paste this particular text. So what I also noticed before going through is that this is not a normal hyphen. This is a different character, and I would say it resembles a hyphen, right? But when I typed in hyphen on my keyboard as well, it still showed the same error. So it was a different character at the end of the day, right? But again, all of these things I discovered through the trial and error aspect of it too, right? So by clicking OK, we're gonna filter our data set just to 1 row. And that 1 row happens to be the 2006-2007. Now, just one thing to note, right? Even though it showed up here, when we filtered one selection we made, there could have been a whole host of rows showing up the same date range or the year range. But in this instance, in our data set, it just happened to be one particular row showing that deviation, right? So from here now, what we really did this step for is just to extract the range. And again, it's only because of the special character associated with it. So I'm highlighting that 2006-2007, pressing Control, copy that text. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back 1 step. Right. Mhm. Right. So to answer the first question, I'm going to keep the null entries in our data set today, but it's really about the end user, right? So I believe, Dr. Addison, how we treat nulls is really we could take an average, or we could remove them or impute them in right. So
Different types of analysis, depending on the
Yeah.
number of missing values you
Right.
have. So you have different levels of how you could treat with that. If it's a few missing values, you could leave it, but it really depends on the analysis. And
Yeah.
if you want to go more extensively, take the mean values if it's something quantitative and things like that. But
right.
for this one, he will use his discretion for this data set.
Yeah. So again, really good question. In our circumstance, we're going to leave the nulls. And when we get to the front end portion of Power BI, we can treat with it in a different way, right? So you all could always feel free to remind me if I missed that step. But really good question. So what I'm going to do here now is, again, click on the title.to column. It's going to highlight that entire column for me, right? I'm going to select a different functionality here. It's the replace values functionality. So click in here. It will say insert, and that's fine. We go ahead, insert. And what we're going to do is we want to paste our value here, 2006-2007. And what I said before, this is similar to the Excel functionality of find and replace. So this is really and truly the equivalent of that. So we're going to say replacing this particular row with the year 2006. And what we're going to do is click OK. And just wait on everyone. Audience, we're good here? Everyone? All right, cool. Okay. And on the chat, just Right. So to go back to the steps is literally just clicking on each individual step where you could pose back up those series of transformations you performed, right? So it's just clicking and you'll be taken back to that step as what you clicked on, right? So what we're going to do is verify that this indeed worked. So we're going to do the same thing. Click on the drop down for this particular column, load more, so it loads the entire data set, and drag down all the way to 2006. Right. So what we're seeing is that it really did find and replace that anomaly with 2006, right? So that's exactly what we anticipated, what we wanted. And because we're good with this, we can click OK. Right? I'm going to delete this filtered rows here because it's not necessary for us anymore. And just to give an overview, the only reason why we filtered these rows was to get this special character from 2006-2007. So I'm going to click on the X, which is going to remove this step from my series of steps. I just saw someone raise their hand in the chat there. So
I think one person asked, is it okay to have duplicate years in this instance?
yeah, so duplicate years really and truly. Oh no, not for this not for this instance here, because what Power Query would do is when you click on the drop down, it actually summarizes all unique values into this drop down. So you would never really and truly see a duplicate here. It's just the unique values you see in the drop down here. But if they meant in a different view, multiple movies could be released in the same year, which is a normal occurrence, right? That's fine. So yes, in that instance, it will be fine to see multiple years. I can just show an example, right? So all these we're seeing right now is 1995 because those were the movies published in 1995.
And one other question, someone asked, they highlighted 2006 to 2007, and what was the next step after that?
Right, so the next step after that is we click on replace values and replace that. So just gonna click it here, but right, so you would put the 2006-2007 here, which you copied, and you're gonna replace that with 2006 in this field. Okay, cool. So I'm moving along here. Right. Yeah, sure, yeah. No, you wouldn't. So right. So clicking on load more really is going to give us the entire list of all the movies in our data set. Duplicate years. Okay. So there's a couple other instances where it really is showing duplicate years. But I believe that when we do this next step, it should remove those duplicate years, right? So good spot. Yeah. That's a good question. What we could do before is filter it. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So yeah, just to respond exactly what Ishmael said is we would filter it before just to see how many what is the count of that. And when we do that find and replace or replace values, we can just check back afterwards, making sure that all those rows were filtered out accordingly. Right. So what we're going to do here now is click on the title.to column, again, highlighting that entire column. And we're going to split column again, right? So click on split column and by delimiter. And essentially what we're going to do is remove this closing parentheses here. Now, again, granted with the same three options, and we can select any of these because we know that it's going to be one closing parentheses. So what I said before, the leftmost delimiter would be equal to the rightmost delimiter, which would be equal to all or each occurrence, because there's only one occurrence of this closing parenthesis. So all three options are applicable because of the nature of it showing one parenthesis in any particular row. So we click on OK, and it shows up as the year separated from that closing parenthesis. So what we're going to do now is click on that entire column, which is title 2.2, and essentially remove this because it's not valid in our data set. So we see this icon here saying remove columns, and we click on it, and we are granted with two options, right? Remove columns or remove other columns. And what remove other columns really means is that if we highlight this particular column, could be any column, and we want to keep these ranges of columns, that's fine. But we will delete everything else other than what we have highlighted. And we don't want to do that. We want to remove only the columns that we have highlighted. So we click the first option, remove columns. And I'll just pause.
Yeah. So I think right now, before we take a break in 5 minutes, let's kind of just get all the additional questions anyone had. And Adir will just summarize the steps that you all would have learned earlier if anybody has any questions. So for the next 5 minutes, in-person and online audience, feel free to let us clear up whatever steps you need to clear up before the break. Any in-person questions or steps to be repeated?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you just want to make sure the person's virtually here as well, right?
Hello, testing. Okay, fantastic. No, because I think if I heard correctly, the question before was regarding, how do you pick up duplicates in Power BI, correct? That's the question before.
Yeah, it was when we filtered, yeah.
I don't know if you all covered this earlier on, but is it easier or is it possible to actually, when you're doing the Python section, to actually write a Python script that would actually pick up the duplicates, and so that anytime you upload and update the information, you have the algorithm there?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and we'll touch on that further on, right?
Okay.
So
All right.
there are just some extra steps we'll cover in Python just to
foundation.
get rid of any anomalies, right? So
Okay.
really good question. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Right. Before.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I know a couple of persons asked about the duplicate years, right? So when you click on load more, so I loaded the entire data set, and what would happen in that instance is maybe there was a space after the parentheses, or in these years there was a space. By removing that parentheses, it's essentially going to trim that movie title so it doesn't have any blank spaces either in the years or even in what we're keeping as the movie title, right? So that would explain the duplicates there, right? Yeah.
Someone asked, splitting on delimiter, change the column type and fix the duplicate issue. Someone just mentioned that. Right.
Cool.
In the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is purely, I believe, would be a spacing issue.
Someone else also said when we click replace, it didn't say how many times, if at all, it made a replacement. Is there a way to know? Asking for real world cases.
Right. So exactly, another audience member asked that same question. What we could do is filter the rows where we want to replace by, and do that replace values, and afterwards we just verify that it did accomplish what we wanted to replace.
We also have an in-person question.
Hi, morning.
Hello.
I have a question, but it's not based on the exercise that you're doing now. That's okay?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
All right, so 2 questions. The first one is I want to know, using Python and Power BI, what could it do that I cannot do on Power Query?
Right. So really good question. We sort of put that in the parking lot. when we do get to the second half of the segment, right? But yes, a really good question. We'll cover that in the second half.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the second one is,
Yeah.
could I use Python to flag things in my Power BI report? So maybe a value is greater than, lesser than, before a particular threshold, after, that kind of thing. And if I could get that sent to me in an email?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So in terms of getting that, I believe is a cleaning sort of step, right? The thing about Python and Power BI really and truly is to render image. So if you're not rendering an image, yes, the script will run, but it will not show any visualization. So what we could do is take that data set outside of Power BI and analyze that separately through Google Colab or Jupyter Notebook. But in terms of integrating it with Power BI, the end goal of integrating Python is to show a visualization, right? So to track each step along the way, yes, you want to make sure that it shows exactly what you wrote your code to execute. But in terms of showing that in a visual, it may not be the best method of going about it. All right.
So I think what we will do now is we will take a quick 10-minute break until 11 a.m. AST, and then we will resume with the session 2. If any of you still have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And of course, for the in-person audience, you could feel free to ask us your questions. And just note, we also have a Q&A at the end of the session this afternoon, so that you can also ask your other burning questions. Right? So take a quick break, stretch, get something to drink, and then we'll resume in 10 minutes.
Testing. 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 All right, everyone. So just picking up where we left off before, I'm going back to our Power Query segment where we split the year from the title, right? So I just would like to ask anyone, so we did this, right? We split this here. Now looking at the genre column, what would you like to alter to this column here? Anyone? What do you see as a problem needing to be fixed? The titles. What about the titles? Right. Correct. Yeah.
Adira, could you repeat what she said?
Okay, so just looking at our finished transformation here, right? Well, finished for our first steps. What initially do we notice needing to be fixed right off the bat? So as the audience member said, it's the name for title 2.1. It's not really an applicable name, right? So it's not really helpful. So first things first, we change that title, right? So what we do is double click on that title 2.1 and we have the functionality to change the name. So what we're going to do is type in years as the title for that column, right? So we see a new Power Query step coming up here where we see the title 2.1 has now been changed to years, the name years. Everyone is good on that, right? And the chat as well. Just want to make sure before we move on. Cool. Okay. So second question again. What is another issue that you notice that we could fix? What doesn't really sit well with you? Okay. So what for me, I would say looking at the genre column just to narrow it down a bit, right? So for me in this genre column, I'm seeing a same kind of mechanism we saw in the title, the original title column. In this instance, it's pipe separated, right? So it's not separated by parentheses. The straight bar, we call it a pipe separator. And in our instance, this is not really helpful to us because there's so many different permutations and combinations that we see in the genre column. So what we try to do here is standardize it. And we pretty much go about doing this the same way we would have done before, separating the years from the title, right? The movie title column. So clicking on the genre column, it highlights, and then we click on split column. So we're going to split by delimiter, and we're going to split it by that pipe. And what we see here, again, presented with the same options, right? So essentially, if we split by the leftmost delimiter, it will just split by that leftmost pipe, and the other column will be all the remaining characters pertaining to that original column, right? The rightmost one will do the opposite. It will keep everything before that last pipe, and then the other column, it will just be the last name after that pipe. And then by each occurrence now, as the name suggests, it's going to split a new column every time it sees that pipe in that text field or that particular row. So in our instance here, what we're going to do is click on each occurrence because we want to separate the different genre that we're seeing from one another, right? So by clicking on OK, we're going to see multiple columns come up here now. And the reason why there are multiple columns is because of the many or the same number of occurrences of each pipe that was present in the original column, right? So as many occurrences as they are, the Power Query will create the same number of columns to suit, right? So for our purpose, what we're going to do is keep the first two, genre 1 and .2. But let's say, and this is, we could use this as a takeaway, right? What we could do afterwards, maybe if we have time, is we'd like to have genre.2 really as any null occurrence, we take it as the first value of the genre.1 field or text. But we're not going to do that as yet, right? We're going to leave all the nulls as they are. But that's just an extra challenge that we could do if we have time after, right? So what we're going to do here now is click on everything, from genre.3 all the way to the right. So by clicking and highlighting as we move across, we select these 4 columns. And what we're going to do, similar to before, is remove columns. So remove columns and the remove columns option. Now this will pause here a bit just so everyone could feel free to ask any questions. Yeah, sure.
Testing, yeah. The same step you mentioned with the genre one and replacing the nulls. If you do that, would that in fact skew the data by doing that?
Very good question, right? So what in my interpretation of it is if I say the first occurrence of that genre in that category is the parent. So let's say a action comedy, or it could be a romance comedy, or let's say strictly romance, right? What I would do is take romance from the first column and I'll place it in the second column if there's a null. So it's romance twice, meaning that it's just strictly romance. That's my interpretation of fill in the nulls, right?
Okay.
But there may be movies, like for instance, many action comedies that are both an action movie and a comedy as well, right? So that's my interpretation. It's really how I would treat that occurrence, right?
Okay.
But if another school of thought might be, let's say it's purely a action movie, and there's not really another genre, we could tag on to that. We could also leave it as null, right? So just enforcing that maybe a different school of thought is strictly that first genre and nothing in accordance afterwards. All right, so we're going with that approach really, right? So we'll leave the nulls as they are. I haven't heard anything in the chat. Ishmael? Okay, I think we're good to go, right? Haven't seen any hands raised or anything like that. Right. So okay, I've seen one hand being raised in the chat. Right. Right. So the reason why I kept the first two really is we normally see like action comedies, or maybe it's another sort of duo sort of genre, cross genre. It's fine if persons want to keep three and more, but really and truly, sometimes being more descriptive segregates the data a bit more, making it hard to show like a pie chart or a line graph or something like that, right? So grouping it a bit more, it just gives us the opportunity just to see more clusters of data instead of segregating it more and having more fragments of that data, right? That's really and truly why I kept the first two columns. I'm just seeing one more hand being raised there. I don't know if it's the same question.
I think someone asks for real world scenarios. Could we have duplicate records for each genre?
Duplicate, yeah. So that's exactly what we were saying, right? So if, like, for instance, there's a comedy, like what I'm seeing in the first row, it's a comedy romance, a comedy drama, but then there's strictly a comedy, right? There's no other other subgenre, I would call it, attached to that certain record, right? So I would say we could duplicate that comedy value from the first genre and place it into the second one. That's one method we could do it, or we could strictly leave it as null. Maybe it's purely a comedy and we can treat it as that. And that's the approach that we would take today. But afterwards, you could feel free to go back in the data set and keep all four, change the second column to be the same as the first column. So there's really a flexibility. But for our demo, we'll keep it in this way, right? So it's fine either way, but just keeping it in this method for our demo, right? So what we do here,
Adir, before we
Okay.
move forward, on the side.
yeah,
We have two other questions in the chat. First one is, why did we remove the columns?
right. So we remove the columns because we don't want to get too fragmented with the data. We want to sort of group it in a clear enough hierarchy. If you add 4 or 5 columns, you sort of fragment the data a bit more, and nothing's wrong with that. But just for the purposes of the demo, we sort of wanted to show trends. And by showing trends, we just kept the 2 columns where we could have seen more a clearer visual instead of it fragmenting more with the different permutations and combinations, right?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And the last question in the chat here, how can the columns be joined?
Right, so the columns could be joined by clicking merge queries. So if you would like to merge multiple data sets together, you could click merge queries, right? By merging queries, you could combine 2 tables into one, really and truly, right? If you wanted to combine the multiple columns together, what we could also do is click on add column. I believe there's a more simple way to do this, right? But from what I remember off the bat, we could click on add column and then custom column. And in custom column, we could add some code, right? It's really mQuery, which we won't really touch on today, right? But in this icon, in this functionality, we really say, let's say column 3, right? Is a new column we want to add. Column 3 is equal to genre 1 and genre 2. And that way we combine the 2 of them together, right? So it's a bit, that M language is very similar to Python, but not quite, right? But I believe there's a more straightforward way of joining the multiple columns together. Okay. I'm not coming across it right now, but that using that M language, you can definitely join these 2 columns there, right? So if there are no more questions, I'll proceed, right? So here now, what we're going to do is we're going to rename this genre.1 to remove the .1, right? So having it a bit more intuitive and clearer for us to follow along. And what I'm going to name this genre.2 column with, and you all could feel free to name it whatever you want, right? Going to name it as categories. Because again, that's the outlook that we have for this particular data set. We say the first genre, which is the parent one, may have many different categories associated with that first genre, right? So just again, the naming mechanism, the naming convention is really helpful to us because we don't want to name it random things, right? And when it's time to use the columns where did I put this? And sort of, we don't know where we coded certain things. So it really is about taking your time here, just keeping in mind, because when we move further along, this is just the initial segment. We really want to tap into these fields and columns that we created here, right? So the last step for our Power Query segment is to close and apply. So closing and applying is going to come out of Power Query, and it's going to carry us back into our canvas. So hopefully there were no errors, right? Okay, cool. So no errors, and it shows the 3 tables on the right-hand side. So we touched on this first icon, which is a report view, and underneath that is the table view. So if we click on the table view now, we are going to see exactly what we saw in Power Query. So our finished transformation is visible to us here. Now, if we would like to filter certain columns, we can feel free to do that. The difference between filtering here and filtering in Power Query is when we filter in Power Query, it's not available here. We truncate our data set. Right, so there's a school of thought, right? So if you want to perform any action, you do it furthest up the pipeline as possible. You don't bring it down, and then perform an action on it, right? So as as early on in your data processing stage, you could perform that certain step, do it as soon as possible. And if we wanted to filter a certain name, let's say we wanted to exclude drama from our genre, we could have done that before in Power Query. And if we filtered out and kept everything except that, it would not show up in our front end. But that does not limit us to not having the capability of filtering out genre from our front end as well, which we would also get into afterwards. But the benefit of that, just kind of being a segue for a bit, right? The benefit of that is because when we refresh our report, we don't constantly refresh unnecessary data through our pipelines. So by filtering it out quite early in our report building, you don't have long waiting periods for our report to refresh, right? So that's just some of the benefits of carrying it up further up the pipeline, or in our case, that's just Power Query. So similar kind of interaction here as with Power Query. And what we could do here is change certain columns in from like a whole number to a text. We could rename it. You could even add a new column here. So you could add a new column both here and in Power Query. But if you need to do certain things, I would suggest keeping it to Power Query. As for the beginners, we can do it through the front end because it's a lot more straightforward than doing it through Power Query. Right, and just to answer the person again who asked about combining the two columns, if you click on new column, you can also use DAX, which we would also touch on a bit, where DAX is the Power BI language where you could combine multiple columns or many other different functionalities together, right? And we'll get into that a bit further down. Right. So before I move on and we start dragging and dropping visuals onto our canvas, there's this report view here, right? Model view. So this model view, and I'll put movies at the center of my entity relationship diagram, right? Just to show how Power BI automatically knows which columns in the different data sets can join to different columns in another data set, right? So it automatically did this for us. But again, let's say we're working with a whole different data set that we're unfamiliar with, and Power BI itself doesn't give us that auto suggestion. So I'm just going to delete this here, and you all could follow along or not, right? But it's just to show in that instance, if Power BI really didn't know that relationship of the bat and joined it together for us, right? So when we loaded the data set initially, we had 3 CSV files all separate from one another. And we loaded them one after the other, right? So here, what we're going to do is, in looking at this data set, I'm just going back here in the table view. I'm seeing my movie ID column. There's a unique ID for every movie title. Or I didn't change the name of title. It remained as title.1, but I still have the option of renaming it here, right? So I'm just going to do that right off the bat. So that's something I notice, and we could change, right? Right. So the movies data set has these 5 columns now, all of unique movie IDs, right? And what we're going to do is, I believe it's the tags, right? So it's the tags data set. I'm going to click on tags, and we're seeing the tag now. That table also has a movie ID. So those of us familiar with SQL or some sort of relationship database, this is our foreign key, and what was in the movies data set is our primary key. And what we're going to do now is join the 2 of them together, right? We're going to join our movies data set 2 tags through that movie ID column, which is common between the both of them. Just seeing one hand being raised there.
Yes, I think. Okay, I think she asked, so I'm only seeing ratings and tags on my view. Should I have saved changes before? Is that what you wanted to ask? Who I can't remember who raised their hand in the chat. Just let me know. Yes. Yes. So she wanted to know, I'm only seeing ratings and tags on my view. Should I have saved changes before?
Right. So we should have seen 3, right? Which is the movies table there. So perhaps you closed it without saving any changes in Power Query, which would mean that the movies transformed table didn't come across into the front end, right? I believe that's what would have taken place there. Right. So what we have, what we see now is we have the option to create a new relationship. And before I do that, this just shows us all our existing relationships. Now, there could be a preset relationship that is not necessarily active, right? And again, I'll just leave those sort of tidbits post-discovery out of our seminar, right? But for our purposes, and those who are following along with this step, we're trying to recreate what Power BI initially created automatically for us, right? So what we're going to do is click on movies. So from table is from the movies table, and it's loading all these 5 columns into the tags table. And again, Power BI is showing the commonality between the 2 tables, and it's showing me a one-to-many relationship. If it's a many-to-many relationship, unfortunately, I don't think we will be able to create a relationship between them, right? So this is fine for us, exactly as we wanted, and we click Save. And this, again, is in the instance where Power BI doesn't automatically recognize that relationship between tables. That's completely fine. We have ways around creating the relationships between the table, right? So here now, yeah.
One person asked, how come you have only ratings in managed relationships?
Ratings. So I kept ratings because it Power BI formed the correct relationship between the 2 tables, right? So again, I'm seeing here it's movie ID to movie ID across the 2 tables, right? The ratings table and the movies table. And this diagram is showing me here where there's a 1, it's 1 to star, meaning 1 to many. So again, it's the same relationship I expected of this data set before, right? And again, before going into Power BI, through Kaggle, we see what the data set looks like too, right? So we can even see the different tables and everything, description. The README file also has everything there, right? So don't just look at Power BI as well. You can look at from Kaggle and any README files attached to the data set as well for further data set information.
Okay, and someone else wants to know, why don't we see the primary key for the movies table in the relationship diagram?
Good question, right? So it's a bit different than SQL. We pretty much need to know what is the primary key in our data set. So through visual interrogation, really, we would really notice those sort of things. They're not really a glaring sort of icon or any kind of explanation showing that as such. But good question. All right, so I think we're sort of clear with this segment here, just showing how each of these tables interact and have relationships amongst one another.
Before we move on, could you just give them a recap of merging the table?
Yeah, so what we did here before is the assumption that when we load a data set, maybe Power BI doesn't automatically know the relationships between the tables, and that's fine, right? We wouldn't expect it to know that all the time. So what I did was delete this tags the movies relationship, even though it was initially formed, right? Just to show the audience, in the case that Power BI doesn't recognize that relationship, we are free to go ahead and to create that relationship. Okay, so moving on now to the report building point of view, right? Just wanted to pivot back over to the PowerPoint presentation. So we covered the Power Query transformations, right? And this is all our Power Query, which I believe we don't really need to explain. We sort of covered all these points, right? So we use it for cleaning, reshaping, merging data. No coding necessary. We saw it was a graphical user interface, fully interactive. And then the common transformation. So we touched really on the filtering and sorting. When we wanted to filter out that year, we did exactly that, right? 2006 to 2007. That is actually a filter action, right? Splitting and merging. In our circumstance, we just split it, right? We didn't merge any columns together. And I believe that was one of the questions we had from the audience as well, right? Pivoting and unpivoting is another functionality we will touch on a bit later in one of our visuals. Custom columns. So my response to the audience member, to merge the columns, we could create a new column, which is add column feature, where we would use the M code to combine those two columns together. And then appending or merging queries. Maybe there are multiple tables where we want to append one on the other. We also have that functionality, right? And merging them, we would merge multiple columns. Similarly to how we had the entity relationship diagram, we could do something very similar in Power Query. Right, and we touched on the managed relationship aspect as well. And now I briefly just want to go into selecting the right visuals, right? So this is really our last segment here before we start building our report. So I'll try to be as quick as possible here. I know you are probably eager with the report building. Right, so visualization selection is really important when we really want to conceptualize our thoughts into a meaningful aspect. What we tend to do is transform the raw numbers into compelling visuals that capture attention and evoke some sort of emotion. Really what we want to do with our data is to tell a story. We don't just want to have numbers appear all over the screen just for that sake, showing that, hey, we show so many numbers. Wow, we did such a good job. It's not really about that aspect. The aspect is really about if you were to show me a dashboard and vice versa, how quickly would I catch on to it? How quickly would I see a trend? So it's all about that perspective, right? So yes, we do a lot of hard work, but keeping it very simple is actually the best way we could do it, right? So by showing our hard work, what I think is our hard work would really be reflected in how easy someone grasps a certain visual, right? And for me, really and truly, the most important aspect of this is choosing the right charts and the right visuals to impact that narrative. We don't want to choose a scatter plot where it doesn't need to be, or a bar chart where it doesn't need to be, right? So what I'm going to do here very quickly is just to give an overview of the common native visualizations Power BI offers. And I just touched on a couple, right? Just for clarity and just for the audience seeing what Power BI is capable of. And the remainder, we can delve into it post-seminar as well, right? So the bar chart is really about showing categorical information. We have two variants, which is the stack one. And in the stack version is literally, as the name says, it's multiple categories for one particular bar. And we also have the group one, right? So you can show subgroups side by side. Let's say we had many years on the x-axis. Let's say this was year one. Year one had categories 1 to 4. Then year 2 would also repeat again, showing categories 1 to 4. So that's a different view of a bar chart. And when really to use it is to compare quantities across different categories and to track changes over time, right? And the height of the bar graph is proportional to the value as well. So you see in this here more of like a step, and the height is directly correlated to how big the value is. Moving on to the line chart. So the line chart really is more of a quantitative view. And really and truly, what I find the best purpose for a line chart is more of like a calendar kind of view. So across a year, showing the different months, or maybe across multiple years, is really where I think the best use of the line graph really, we could really tap into, right? We are not just limited to one line graph alone. Let's say this was for a genre of a drama genre, and these were the number of persons who rated it over time. You could add a different line graph showing a comedy segment as well. showing multiple line graphs, right? But the thing about it is we don't want to add too many line charts because it's hard to follow along with. It is hard to discern multiple different categories in a line graph. And last but not least, we also have the functionality of adding a marker. And really and truly, the marker is really to tie back the the x-axis with the y-axis, right? And then to tag that back into a data point label. Now we move on to the scatter chart. So the scatter chart is really showing the relationship between two variables. In this case here, we're seeing one color coding here. But when I think about a scatter chart, I think about a 3D aspect. And the reason why I say that is because of the relationship amongst the different parameters. If I were to have multiple categories here, it would be color coded in different colors, giving me like a lift of a dimension. So that's why I say more of a 3D point of view, right? So it's mainly just about showing correlation and the relationships between two quantitative variables. And now the histogram is really the statistical tool we would use to show the distribution of numerical data, right? And we use bins. And in this case, the bins were numerical values. So it's along the x-axis, and each bin is in a bracket. And we're showing on the y-axis the frequency of the number of occurrences for each bin. And that's really about it. And then the density chart, right? So the density chart is also called a kernel density plot relating to a distribution of continuous variables. So this is another aspect as well, right? Similar to the histogram, more on the statistical side. Right. And best practices, I wouldn't bore you, but it's pretty much keeping it consistent, maintaining a consistent color scheme, avoid cluttering. Sometimes the less visualizations you use is really better, right? And filtering and cleaning data early on in Power Query is really, as I mentioned before, carrying those practices furthest up the pipeline so that we don't flood our report with unnecessary information. All right, so moving on now to creating the pie chart, right? So this is really where the excitement happens. Not hearing anybody screaming and cheering. Wow. Okay. That's okay. All right. So for me, really and truly, it's about filters at the beginning, right? So what we would tend to do really is to have our filters at the top of the canvas. And what we would do is in our segment here, we click on the movies table, and then we click on years. I would like to make the year a filter for me. But before I do that, I need to select a visual or icon from the list of these visualizations in my pane so that I can drag and drop the particular columns, right? So I'm going to drag, oh, I don't need to drag, I just need to click. So I click on the slicer icon. So a slicer is synonymous with a filter, right? That filtering mechanism. And what I'm going to do now is drag and drop years. So I'm going to make a filter for my years. Now we're seeing here automatically, it's creating it as a sort of year range, which I'm not really interested in for this particular visual. So what I'm going to do now is click on format your visual, which is this, I believe this is a brush and a bar chart, and click on that, and it's going to give me slicer settings. So this part of the visualization pane is really where the aesthetics take place. It's really where we tweak our visuals to make it as appealing in our way as possible. So instead of choosing a between slicer, I'm going to click on a drop down. And this drop down, as the name suggests, is going to give me all my years in my data set just by clicking on that drop down arrow. Before I move along, I know this is a bit fast, so I'll just give everyone an opportunity just to ask any questions before I move on with the rest of the filters. Yeah, sure. Right, so I'm gonna delete this one here, right? I'm gonna do it over. The visualization pane here, I'm gonna click on slicer. So I click on slicer, and it automatically places that filter for me on my canvas. What I'm going to do now, I already expanded my tables, data table, and I'm going to click on years and drag years now onto the field, input field. It automatically presets it as a range, which is not really what I wanted, and that's fine. I have the capability of choosing a different aspect of what I want my filter to do, right? So what I did automatically, we were presented with this part of the visualization pane, right? I'm clicking on the icon next to it in green, format visual. I'm presented with 4 options, right? Slicer settings, all the way down to slider. I'm clicking on slicer settings, expanding that. I'm presented with options. I click on options, style, and I want it as a drop-down. All right, everyone good? Right, so in person, we're all fine. I'll just give the virtual persons some time to respond.
Okay, so I think everyone virtually found Slicer. I don't see any questions. Someone is telling them where it is in the icon bar. I know in some different Power BI versions, the actual little visualization for the Slicer may not be the same place where you would
Yeah.
have seen it with Adir's
Yeah.
version, right?
Correct, yeah.
Any questions so far? I think everybody's okay.
Right,
Yeah?
okay, cool.
Okay, so we can proceed.
Moving along, we're gonna repeat this step 2 more times, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click again on the slicer, and I'm gonna drop my genre column here onto that slicer, right? And it's giving me the option of selecting it one by one. I'm not really interested in that functionality, but if you all are, that's fine. I'm more interested in the drop down aspect. So I'm doing that again, right? So making it into that drop down. And one more time, what I'm going to do is allow us to have the categories as a filter as well. So clicking on the filter and categories, I drag it on the field. And again, I don't want that selection one by one, but I rather it as a drop down, right? For me, it's a bit of a more compact look. And yeah. Now, you would have seen me just drag the category filter a bit more to the right-hand side, right? So we have a lot of flexibility in where we place our visual, and I'll treat the filter as a visual, right? As well on the canvas. So in our canvas, we would see these 3. I've put them in the same line. So they're pretty much in a row, both height and top and bottom, right? And what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna select all 3, right? And by selecting all 3, I'm gonna do some additional functionality here. I'm gonna click on format, right? So click on format, which is in the top ribbon. And then I'm gonna click on align. And what I'm gonna do is click distribute horizontally. So, oops. We're just gonna go back one step again, right? Format, align, distribute horizontally, right? So essentially what this is gonna do, or what this did, is to have equal spacing between the leftmost visual and the rightmost visual, just for that more cleaner formatted look. What I'm gonna do now is start building the visual, right? So the first one is the pie chart based on movie genres. So going back into the Power BI report, I'm going to click on the pie chart and it shows up again, no populated information. And what I'm going to do now is where it says legend, I would like to put the genre column onto the legend. And what I'm going to do now is put movies onto values. So what we did here essentially is say we would like our segments to be based on the genres, and we would, when we just, so I'm just gonna go back a step, right? So this is just me putting genres on the legend, and what we're gonna do is drag the movie ID and put it on values. So Power BI automatically does a count. We realize this count of movie ID didn't exist anywhere in my data set. Power BI did this for me. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's take a pause. In the room, everybody's up to speed? Yeah? No? Right, this particular step? Or go back? Let me start. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I know I have to get back to you. The people online? Let us know. Because I'll be honest with you, once you kind of start to do it for 1 or 2 visualizations, then you will start to build the kind of intuition to start to drag and drop in different places. Same thing when I started to do, when I learned Power BI myself. So let me just make sure that everybody who is online was able to get to these steps for this particular part. Yes?
Yeah. All right, cool. So essentially what we did here is we said we would like to get the number of movies by different genre, which is essentially what the pie chart does for us, right? So each different color is a different genre. And the annotation where we have on the outside is saying both the count and the percent contribution for each segment of that genre of the total data set. So that's both given a numerical representation and a percentage representation as well. So I'm gonna center this just by dragging, right? I don't necessarily need to do this. By clicking on the visual and clicking format, I can click on align and align center, right? So it automatically centers it for me. Just seeing one hand raised in the chat there as well.
Yes, I am seeing let me see the question. Can you do over the last one with the count?
Right. So the count is as this, right? So what I did is I dragged the genre field onto the legend. And after I did that, I dragged the movie ID onto the values. And by doing this, Power BI automatically converted it into a count. So it counted each movie ID for me automatically. I didn't need to create any additional functionality. All right, so what we're going to do now is change the wallpaper of our canvas. So we may like that plain white color, that's fine, but I'm just going to show how we can go about changing this color, right? So what we're going to do, I'm just clicking on a blank place in my canvas, and I'm seeing the brush and the paper. I click on this icon, then I'm seeing all the way down to wallpaper. I'm clicking on this, right? Then I see a color option. What I'm going to do is click on color and then click on more colors. And I'm going to type in this hex code here as my color, right? So F0, F3, F7. So I'm just going to leave this here for the while just so everyone could see the hex code, right? Right, cool. So it does show up there. And what we could do is just click anywhere else, and we'll see the light blue color show up as the background for our canvas. And now we're gonna leave all our filters and visuals as they are. But what I'd like to do is make sure that all the visuals are transparent and have the same color as the background. So I'm just gonna click on my years filter, the icon here on format a visual. What I'm gonna click on now is general and effects. And you'll see an option here saying background. I'm gonna take off my background. And when I take off my background, you see that the years filter automatically aligns perfectly with that background color, right? Just gonna go through it one more time. I'm gonna do it this time for the genre filter. Click on it, format your visual, general, effects, and take off that background color. I'm gonna do it the remaining times. And if you click on the different visuals, the preset functionality remains there on Power BI. You could just toggle it off. You don't necessarily need to go back through all these steps, right? So again, same thing for my pie chart. Right. So automatically what we would see is that this canvas is already looking very limited, very small, right? So again, click on any white space or any light blue space on my canvas, any free space, then click back to that paper icon and then click on canvas settings. So Power BI automatically preloads this aspect ratio for us, a 16:9 aspect ratio. Many times it might be exactly what we want. It might not be a big dashboard we're building, but in our situation, we would like it to be a bit longer. So what we do is click on type, click on custom. I'm gonna leave my width 2080 pixels because it's pretty much standard width. And then my height, no, I'm going to make this to probably, I think for our purposes, probably around 3000 pixels might be good enough for us, right? Now, when we do this, we see it go haywire. That's fine. What we're going to do now is click on any free space in the canvas. Then click on view, page view, and say fit to width. So by clicking fit to width, it fits the canvas in that width, but it allows us to scroll. We don't see that entire big 3000 by 1280 pixels all sandwiched into one icon. That's not really helpful to us, right? Okay, so before I move on to the next visual, I just want to make sure everyone followed along with, which part? After
Can you just go over what you just did after you
Right, sure, yeah. So click on any blank space. When we click on the blank space within Power BI, we want to do something pertaining to our canvas, right? So by clicking on this here now, we go to canvas settings. And instead of using this type here, it automatically had 16:9 aspect ratio. We would like to make it a custom aspect ratio. By clicking on that now, we have the flexibility of changing both the height and the width, but we kept the width the same at 1280 pixels, but we made the height at 3000 pixels. By making the height at 3000 pixels, what Power BI would say is that this thing is quite long, right? So what we try to do is make it into one view without me scrolling up and down. And that's fine. I click on view and I click on page view and then fit to width. What this setting does is fit to that 1280 pixels, but I end up scrolling up and down, right? And that's exactly what I intended it for. Right. I'm just mindful of the time here. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how to center our titles. So we click on the visual, then the pen and the bar chart. Click on general, Again, this general side here is really for us to make our aesthetics, our aesthetic changes here. And what I am going to do is change this here now, right? So I'm going to say Control A, type in number of movies by genre. And you'll see also additional features we have here, right? You could change the text color, the background color. What I'm gonna do, I like the color and the background color, so that's fine, right? I'm gonna click on the alignment. So I'm gonna just align it center. Everyone is good with that so far? Cool. All right. So that's it pretty much for our first visual. Again, no screaming, no applause. Wow. Right. Right. So fantastic job, everyone. So we saw pretty much how to take the raw data and to create our first visual. This is actually our first visual here. For me, I would say this is a massive accomplishment, right? Now, as Dr. Addison said, it's pretty straightforward from here. It's all about repetitive actions. And by repeating it over and over, it becomes very easy. It becomes second nature to create dashboards. So I'm going on to the presentation just to see what's next in store for us. So we have the average rating by year. And what we're going to do is create this into a line graph. Right. So I know before we mentioned DAX, and we didn't really get an opportunity to perform any kind of DAX calculations as well. So now we can treat with this as our opportunity to use DAX, right? So DAX really and truly is a programming language that comes with Power BI. So what we want to do is just take a look at the ratings table. So we see the 4 columns we're familiar with, but we are not seeing average rating. So I'll show you all 2 ways of going about this, right? We're going to do it again natively with Power BI, right? So I'm going to click now on my line graph, line chart, and it shows up on my canvas. Just going to center it. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to put my year column into the x-axis because I want it in such a way that it's showing a time horizon for me. Just going to expand it a bit more just so we could see the real nature of this visual. Right? And then now on my y-axis, I'm going to create the average rating. The average rating, I don't necessarily need to create a DAX function. What I could do is click on rating, drag it in the y-axis, and automatically what Power BI would do is sum all the ratings for me. But I don't necessarily want a sum. I want an average. So I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow next to the X icon, and it gives me a whole host of options without coding anything. This is strictly using the graphical user interface. What we're going to do is click on average. And as the name says, it's going to compute an average for us based on that ratings column in that ratings data table. So clicking on average now, we see some sort of fluctuations as the years go by. It's not really the best representation what we could show with this average rating visualization. So what we're going to do now is click on genre and drop it in the legend. And it goes even more haywire now. So it ties back into what the audience member asked earlier on into the data, the seminar. Why don't we have multiple columns of the categories next to one another? It's fine if you want to do that, but it's very difficult to show a line graph or certain behavior with all these activities taking place here. So what we're going to do is, since we've dragged these three columns here, it automatically populates on the filters pane. So what we're going to do is filter out for our genre. We just want to keep two genres, right? We want to keep the comedy genre, and we want to keep the Western genre. Right. So here now it's a bit easier to discern between the two different genres, right? They're color coded in a different way. Power BI automatically did that for us. And if persons just want to see one, like we can do that as well, right? So we just remove the Western genre. I'm just seeing this one purple line graph for the entire time horizon. So let's say now we want to do one step further. We don't necessarily want all the years in our data set. We want to truncate it a bit more. We click on the drop down for the years column, and then we click on basic filtering. And what basic filtering allows us to do is select what we want one by one. So let's say we want to narrow it down to the latest activity we have in our data set. So I'm selecting from 2018 all the way up, let's say, to 2008, right? So we have about 11 years there. So this is even more functionality on top of what we initially created. By using that filter aspect, we were able to truncate our data by genre and by year, that time horizon, right? I'll just give everyone a couple minutes. Any questions? Hey. No, you can simply just click on it, and if it load what was there before, just keep adding to the selection. Right. Oh, sorry. So the audience member asks if we need to press and hold Alt on our keyboard while we select the multiple genres or maybe yes, right? The answer is no. You can click automatically, and it will keep what you selected before and add to it. Right, so that's me adding two more genres there, right? Crime and comedy.
One of the virtual members asked, how do you scroll down on report view? Not able to move chart down.
How do you scroll down? So we scroll down mainly with our mouse. So we scroll down on the canvas, clicking on any blank space in the canvas, scrolling down. So you see if I scroll down, 3000 pixels we selected, and all of which the majority is blank right now, right? Because no visuals were placed there as yet. Yeah, yeah. All right. So just to repeat what the audience member said, right? I think there's just issue with the returns. I think it would be the returns column, right? The values aren't fluctuating year on year. Yeah. Yeah. Your line is not showing. Right. All right. I'll just let Dr. Addison
Just for her benefit, can you just redo it so she can see the fields?
right,
Because she's
sure.
getting a blank line. Well, a blank graph.
A blank graph.
Yeah.
Okay. So we drag the years column onto the x-axis. Okay. Yeah. Right. So what we're doing here is dragging the years axis, the years on the x-axis, and we drag the ratings on the y one, and we clicked on the drop down saying average rating. And you still didn't see anything. All right. Sorry. I'll add it. Any Vidish? Anyone? What the audience member is experiencing is dragged all the fields but not able to see the line graph. Okay. Anyone? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's it really and truly for our first segment, right? So one last thing I want to do is just to make it consistent. So click on the visual and click on general. I'll just take off that background color, right? Happy with the title, so we could leave the title as it is and just center it, right? Horizontal align. Right. We have one more native visual, but just for being mindful of the time, I believe we might have to take that post the seminar today, right? Apologies about that. So it really was about showing the advanced scatter plot, where we would use the average ratings and number of movies, right? So that in the Google Drive link, we have access to the Power BI dashboard, so we could take a view from there.
Before we move on, someone asked, how did you get the genres to go in separate lines?
Right. So, right. Good question. So the separate lines, if you don't place genres in Legend, it will show up as one consolidated line graph with the average amongst those you selected. So I'm just going to take it off here, right? And you'll see that exact same thing. It's one average being taken across all our filters we selected on the canvas. So genres, dropping that in Legend, will segregate that now into different line graphs for us. Right. So what we're going to do now is go on to our question segment. Dr. Allison, so we have time for our questions, right? So one question, well, the first question, what is one key benefit of using Power Query for data transformation before creating any visuals in Power BI? So out of what we've went through today, what is one benefit you all saw? Could be anything. Right, right. Correct. So just to repeat what the audience member said, we had the functionality of replacing that discrepancy with the date range, making that conform with the rest of the other values in that column. Yeah, sure. Right. Right. So again, very good response. So just to repeat what the audience member said, it's just about that conformity and giving us that clean look in our situation. We had the categories transformations we did there, right? So yes, good responses. And last question, how do you think incorporating Python powered visuals can enhance your analysis beyond the native capabilities, right? So I know we are going to touch on this now, but off the bat, what do you think we could do additionally that Power BI cannot offer? Yeah. Okay, so that's a good response, right? So essentially, we can use code to do additional visualizations that the native Power BI framework doesn't offer us, at least as for now. Right, so we delve into the Power BI, Python and Power BI segment, and I'll just run through this very quickly, right? So what is Python? Python really and truly is a programming language, and we find most use cases in data analysis, web development, scripting, and automation, right? The simple syntax, Python is really straightforward to learn and to get a feel of compared to more complex languages like Java and maybe C++, C#, and other more complicated programming languages. And it really has an extensive ecosystem, right? So we have a lot of libraries. We're going to use pandas today. And those familiar with more on the machine learning side, NumPy and scikit-learn really help us to do that data manipulation, right? Especially when it comes to machine learning principles. And because of the cross-platform and its open source nature, persons with different OS could run this pretty straightforward. And a huge benefit to us is because it's so widely adopted, we have a lot of support in this community as well, right? So we could use Stack Overflow even through ChatGPT and GitHub. There's a lot of support we have there, right? And why use Python and Power BI? So really and truly, it's the advanced transformations that we aren't capable of using in Power BI, the native functionality. The benefit of it is that when we create Python visuals, it refreshes automatically once there are any changes in our data set. So from update, let's say you want to add post 2018 to our data set and join that or append that, you have the capability of doing that in Power Query. And once you do that, it would refresh automatically in Python, right? Those on the statistical side, machine learning side, it's really an innate functionality using Python for those features, machine learning, as we mentioned, and it's all about automation and being able to reproduce our results, right? So because we're not going to change our script, really and truly, after we publish our data source, keeping that script constant, the only real change that's going to break our code is by changing the name of a column or by adding multiple columns that we didn't have initially in our Python script, right? So we just need to be mindful of that as we make further amendments, further additions to our first dashboard. So integrating the Python scripts really is as straightforward as clicking on the PY icon on our visuals, that visual pane, and we can drag and drop as we're accustomed to. So everything that we want in Python, we're gonna drag those fields from the data pane over into that value section here we see in this middle graph. And then on the last or the rightmost one is really a representation of what our code is going to look like. And by simply just using our Python code, it's going to recreate that Python visual for us, right? So it's that straightforward. What's highlighted in yellow is just the steps of installing those libraries that we're going to use today, right? So pip install, pandas, matplotlib, seaborn, and wordcloud. These are the 4 different libraries we're going to use. And for those persons who haven't installed as yet, that's fine. And you can use this command to install the Python libraries. Just save your work, close the Power BI dashboard and open once you have installed again, right? And we are going to get into it. So we have our first Python visual, which is going to be the box plot, which is really a statistical tool which shows us the spread of our data, and it summarizes it into a fashion where we could easily see the spread or the statistical behavior of our different genres. So in this case here, what we're going to create in a couple minutes is the genre on the y-axis followed by the ratings on the x-axis. So essentially, this is us using these 2 fields from Power BI and create that statistical representation, right? So the beauty of the box plot is that it sandwiches a lot of information into a small visual by itself. So we have the median, which is the dark blue, and then we have the first quartile, we have the third quartile, and then our entire range. And from there, we could capture the outliers as well. So that's the beauty of our usage with box plots. So we're gonna get straight into it. So pivoting back into our canvas in Power BI, I'm gonna click on Python, and immediately what you would see is that Python brings up this box here, which is really and truly just a warning that we could enable. And then from here now, what we're going to do is drag the genre value and the rating value. So we're going to see something here, say, oh, yeah, sure. Okay, so we're just going to start over here. That's fine. We see next to R, the PY icon. Click on the PY icon. And that would open up both the visual and the scripting segment as well. So what Power BI tells us here, drag fields into the values area so that we could access this using our scripts. So Python doesn't automatically recognize our whole data set. We need to truncate it or feed that now into the Python visual so that Python could recognize exactly what columns we want to focus on. So it's exactly that. That's what we're going to do, right? We're going to click on genre. And then we're going to click on rating. And by clicking on rating, we're automatically seeing Power BI doing the functionality as it does, giving us sum of rating. We don't want sum of rating. What we're going to do is click on the drop down next to the X and say don't summarize. By clicking don't summarize, essentially we're telling Power BI, please don't make this into any sort of calculation. Give me the data as I would like it to be. So we're just going to be typing and pulling the mic at the same time, right? So please, sorry. Right, so what we did is drag the two fields here, right? The genre and the ratings one. No, that's all right, that's all right. Yeah. So dragging the two makes it available for us, right? So we see this notation here, data set. What Power BI, Python does really in Power BI is saying, my data set is everything that you feed to me, which is everything you drop in that values segment there. So we see it here. Data set is equal to pandas.dataframe. It's creating a pandas data frame from both the genre and ratings column. And what it does afterwards, even though it's commented, it's still running in the background. It's saying the data set is then equal to the data set after dropping any duplicates. So this, what you see here, is really pandas functionality in Python, which allows us to manipulate those columns, maybe even with nulls and everything like that. It's really true pandas, what we're using it so far, right? So what we're going to do is firstly import all our libraries. So we say import pandas as PD. So when we say as PD, it really allows us to tap into the name of variable PD without constantly typing pandas over and over and over. It's just a shorter naming convention. After we type that, we're going to say import Seaborn. Seaborn is a visualization library that allows us to create those visuals from the data set we have, right? As SNS. So SNS is just the shorter naming convention for Seaborn. And lastly, matplotlib. Matplotlib also allows us to render these visuals onto the canvas. Matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. So PLT is the shorter naming convention. So similarly to what the audience member asked initially by dropping any nulls, we are going to do that now, right? So what we're going to say is we're going to instantiate a variable, df, short for data frame, is equal to data set. So you see here automatically this code, yes, it's commented out, but the script is still running it in the background, even though it is, right? So data set dot drop any. Drop any. So exactly as the name says, we're going to drop any any's, and the subset we're focusing on, subset is equal to an array and it has two columns in it which we have dragged across. The genre one, which we have to put in quotes, and rating. And we don't want to touch that initial data set. So what we're going to do is do a copy function, right? So we copy that original data set, data frame, and we make it into that df variable. Just going to pause here for a second and make sure everyone is up to speed. In person, I think we're good. Yeah. Oh, you can't see. Okay, right. Right. It's not as visual. Yeah, it's really a little bit blocky.
Oh, did
Yeah.
see?
Right. So I'll just tell it to you, right? So import pandas as PD. Seaborn import. The next line is import seaborn as SNS. And then lastly, import mat, M-A-T, P-L-O-T, L-I-B dot pyplot, P-Y-P-L-O-T. Import matplotlib, M-A-T-P-L-O-T, L-I-B, one word, dot P-Y-P-L-O-T, another word, right? Followed just after the full stop. And you're gonna rename it as, so you're gonna type dot space as space PLT. So essentially you're rendering that pyplot tool from matplotlib, but you're just calling it as PLT for every preceding function, right? We don't have to keep calling it by the long name. On the last line here, what we have so far, we're going to say this data frame df is equal to the data frame that we have, which is named data set, and we're going to drop any NAs or any nulls, and our subset is equal to two values in our array, the genre column and the rating column, right? So that's where you see it here. Subset is equal to the array, and inside two values, the genre and the rating column, which comes from our fields that we dragged across onto the Python visual. And we're going to copy it because we don't want to alter the original data frame. Yeah.
What's the second line? If you could call it out, please.
The second line, this one, right? Yeah, import seaborn, SEABORN as SNS. SNS is just the shortcut name we call in seaborn as. We would call seaborn as. Thanks.
So you could if you could just spell out the data frame, that last line.
Yeah,
with the
sure, yeah,
subset.
no problem, right? So df, this is the variable we create in here, is equal to data set, DATASET. No, yeah, one name, right? And then you say dot drop any, one name again. Sorry, DROP NE, drop NE, one name. Yeah, meaning any NEs or any nulls, right? Right? And then we have a opening parentheses. First parameter is equal to subset, or only parameter is subset. Right? Subset is equal to an array. In this array, we have two values. Yeah, subset equal, yeah. Subset equal array. In that array, we have two values, and the two values are genre in quotation marks. And then you have rating in another quotation mark. Yeah. Maxim. Yeah.
All of you are in the WhatsApp group. I'm going to snap it and send it to you in the WhatsApp group. All of you in here are in the WhatsApp group? Okay, I'm snapping it now and I'll send it. I
So-
think probably the black background maybe, because the people
Yeah.
online could see.
Right.
So
So just for the folks online, in person, it's a bit hard to read, so just iterating over the code here. But I believe with the screen record, you all should be able to see it a bit better virtually, right? Okay, just gonna give the in-person members some time. Right, and we're gonna move along now. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our figure. So we're gonna say our figure has the dimensions of a width of 9 inches and a height of 5 inches, right? So that's essentially what this line of code is gonna do. So we say plt dot figure, opening parentheses, right? And we say in that opening parentheses and closing, fig size, fig, that figure size is equal to another set of parentheses, right? So followed by 9, comma 5. Right, so plt dot figure, open parentheses, fig size, fig, size is equal to coordinates of, in parentheses, 9, comma 5, followed by 2 closing parentheses. Right? So,
I sent it to, I think a few of you sent it in the chat. Are y'all seeing it in the WhatsApp group?
unfortunately, I can't zoom in. Yeah, just one second, right? So just click here, but I believe that would just,
Let me know if you're seeing it. A few people would have sent it, and I also just sent it a clear shot.
yeah, so it would zoom into the canvas, but not the code itself. Yeah. Apologies about that. All right. What we're gonna do now?
Before you go on,
Yeah,
give me a signal. Are y'all seeing it?
on the WhatsApp
Any
group.
WhatsApp group? The code? Okay. Yes.
Right. Okay. So this functionality here, the third step, is really and truly what we want to do is to create the box plot here, right? So the box plot is a visual summary of the distribution of the data set. What we want to display is the median or the middle value, followed by the first quartile and the third quartile, right? So these would be really and truly the boundaries of that box plot, that box itself, right? Any potential outliers are shown outside the whiskers. So the whiskers really range from 0 to 5, spanning the entire ratings. We have available 0 to 5. And if there are any outliers, it would show outside of that. So what we're going to do now is type SNS dot box plot. And opening and closing parentheses. We're actually just going to pause for a couple seconds here. So SNS dot box plot. And we have opening and closing parentheses. All I did was just press enter. So it just gave me some more space in between the parentheses. Right, and what we're going to do here now is we're going to say the x-axis is equal to my data from the genre column, close quotation marks, and then my y-axis now is equal to my ratings column, right? So, comma, ratings. Let me just make sure I am referring to it correctly. So, exactly as I dropped it here on the Python visual, it's rating and genres. I have to refer to it the same way in the Python code. Right, genres, rating, and comma here now again after the y. So just to reiterate again, right? SNS.boxplot, open and close parentheses automatically. We have a x and a y. X is equal to genres, open quotation marks, followed by close quotation marks, right? After that, comma, and then the y value now, which is equal to open and close quotation marks, rating, followed by a next comma again, right? So a third variable is coming here, median prop, median prop, median props. And this is equal to a dictionary. So it's taken in two values, right? It's taken in color. Median, so MEDIAN PROPS, one word. No, this is a dictionary. So equals the dictionary, right? The curly brace. So the first parameter, and I'll just go ahead, but I believe we could comment out this line, right? So I would remove this line here because we could always come back to show the code. Essentially, what that line would do is sorry, I didn't. Right. Essentially, what that line would do is this dark blue line, it would just show that separation as a median. But that's not necessarily, we don't really need that for now, just to sort of speed things along. Right. So I've just removed that median props parameter. And what we're going to say is data is equal to df. So essentially, what this is doing is saying my data is coming from that DF data frame, and my x-axis is the genre column in that data frame. My y-axis is the rating from that data frame. Now what we're going to do now is type plt.title, and in here now, opening and closing parentheses, we're going to call our graph distribution of ratings by genre. Right, so we named our title there. What we're going to do is name our x-axis and our y-axis, right? So after that, we click on type plt.xlabel, xlabel, opening and closing parentheses, and we're going to name it as genre. And plt now dot ylabel, opening and close, and we're going to just name it simply as rating. Right, so before I move on, I'm just going to reiterate those three lines of code. plt.title, T-I-T-L-E, opening and closing parentheses followed by those quotation marks. Inside all of those, you could name it whatever graph you would like. I named it as distribution of ratings by genre. Now this line of code, the middle one, is plt.xlabel, and in here, opening and closing parentheses, quotation marks, genre, and then plt.ylabel, all one word. We have the rating in quotation marks and inside the parentheses as well. So a couple more lines of code before we finish the box plot. We're going to do one thing, right? plt.xticks. So that's plt.xticks. And what we're going to do is say rotation is equal to 45. So if we don't do this, all our labels on the x-axis are going to show in one straight line, very horizontal. So we're going to slightly rotate it by 45 degrees just so it appears. Yeah, sure. plt.xticks, xticks. In brackets, what we have is rotation is equal to 45 degrees. So rotation equal 45. Two more lines of code. So this line of code really is just so that we could plot all the elements nicely on our figure with preventing any clipping or overlapping, right? So this one here is plt.tight underscore layout. So it's just to make that layout a bit more crisp. And the last line of code now is plt.show. So this was to answer the audience member a bit earlier on in the seminar when they asked about the computations with different errors or whatever the case is. If you don't put plt.show, you will not render any visual onto the Power BI canvas. Your code will run, but no visualizations will appear on the canvas. So, right, correct. Yeah. It's just to make sure that everything we computed above renders appropriately on the visual, right? Hopefully there are no errors. What I'm going to do is click on Run Script, which is the play button on the top right of the script editor. And I click Run. I click Run and just see a spinning wheel here. So hopefully no errors. Right. So we see our box plot here. I'm just going to minimize it and expand our visual. Right. So in our box plot, we have the genre on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, we have the ratings. So as we know, the ratings are 5 stars, 0 to 5, and the median being 2.5, which is the dark line we see around that 2.5 x label, x tick. And the different distributions, we see most of them have the same sort of distribution. There are a couple caveats. Film noir, war, and western, and these are a bit higher up the y-axis. Yes, sorry. Can't display the visual. Is there anything else, any error in that script? Any other errors? Well, that's it for the Is there any way to say okay? Okay.
And I'm seeing some people in some from the computer programming perspective. A lot of the times you have to debug our own code. So if it is, some of you may, if you're new to Python as well, and you probably would have typed something incorrectly, it might be causing some issues. I saw someone in the chat said they had an error in their code and they fixed it. I'm not sure if that will be the gentleman's issue over there. But we will show you the code again, and we will send the snapshot of the full code so you all could run it from scratch. I know in this setting right now, you're kind of hustling to type, right? So
yeah.
So don't worry too much about that. One person is asking, how do we change visual properties like the background in Python?
Right. So that's a really good question, right? So essentially in the box plot variable sns.boxplot, we could add a couple more other color changes and those sort of title fonts and all those things, right? So those are add-on lines of code we could definitely do here. Just for our demo, we haven't included. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to copy the entire code here and paste it in the chat, right? Just bear with me 1 second. So, right. So I just send the code here. So persons who probably would have typed or maybe syntax errors, by copying that code and running it in your script, you should not see any errors in visualizing the data set.
So the virtual participants have the full code there. I will send it to the in-person participants in your WhatsApp group.
Right.
So you could toggle with it and see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop the code separately in the folder that you all have as well, so you could have it as a nice keepsake. Let me just check and see. Are there any other questions? Now, I just want to give you all a time check. I know we would have had a question and answer segment now. We do have a couple more visuals to do, but I'm going to ask you if you want to go ahead and do one more visual, or would you like to stop here and ask him your questions? Now, the full slideshow that he would have used is in the agenda. It's a link in your agenda within the folder. So if you want to go back to see what other visuals he created. So let me just get from the room. Would you all like to do one more visual? Yes? Okay, so we will do one more. So Adir,
Yeah,
can you
sure.
do the one right after? That's a fun one, the wood cloud.
Yeah, the wood cloud one is a really nice visual, right? So what we're going to do here with the wood cloud visual is exactly as the name suggests, right? So what this visual really shows us is the popularity of certain phrases, certain words in the tags column. So that tags column is really an open-ended response where users would have been free to comment on any particular movie, given a short, very concise description of that particular movie. So some persons, commented good things, bad things. We're just sort of going to recreate that visual, right? That word cloud visual. So going back onto the Python, Power BI interface, I'm clicking on, or just expanding on all my panes, and click on PY, that Python icon again. And what I'm going to do, for this case, I'm just going to drop one column, which is going to be the tag column, right? So the tag column in the tag table is what we're going to drop on the values segment in that Power BI visual. I'm going to click on expanding the script. And again, similar to before, we're going to write our code in here. So we would like to create this word cloud. This word cloud needs a couple of the libraries that we had before. So import pandas as PD and import matplotlib dot py plot as plt. And our last library is word cloud, right? So from word cloud, import word cloud.
When you finish with all the code, I'll also send it to them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we just send this code afterwards as well, right? For anyone who has troubles write any code, right? So if we imported our three libraries here, and what we're going to do, similar to before, we say df, that variable is equal to dataset dot drop ne's, right? Dot drop ne. And the subset is equal to opening array, closing array. And inside there, we want to say tag in quotes. We come out of the closing parentheses and then we say dot copy function. So we copy that to the df variable. And what we're going to do now, after we drop ne's, we would like to create a tag variable. This variable now is essentially one big long phrase. So we're going to transform this column, this tag column, with the various different rows into one huge long text string. So we name this variable as tag underscore text. And this is equal to opening and closing quotes with a space in between them, dot join. And this dot join is going to take all our tags from that tag df data frame. So how we do this? We say str. So we say strt, opening and closing t, right? So just to repeat for the persons, tag underscore text is equal to opening and closing quotes with a space in between them, dot join. In this join function, we have str opening and closing t, which is inside. So essentially what this is doing is converting that t variable into a string. Where does that t variable come from? It comes from our tag column. So for t in df tag. So I'll just explain again what this code is doing, right? So this code essentially is running a for loop for all entries into the df tag column, and it's saying for t, for space t, right? So for all, we could have named it for y in df tag, but all rows in that column, we would like to convert it to a string. And in doing so, after we converted it to a string, we would like to join these by an empty space. So this tag text variable is creating one long character variable with all the comments inside that, separated by a string. After we do that now, we're going to create a variable. WC is equal to word cloud, that word cloud library, opening and closing quotes. We say the width is equal to 1600, comma, height is equal to 600. And for the person who asked before with the background color, we're actually going to change the background color now, right? So you get to see that functionality take place here. So comma, background, BACKGROUND underscore color, but this is the American spelling, COLOR is equal to, and in here, we are going to put this hex code or this hex color, right? So background underscore color is equal to opening and closing quotes. So we first have a hashtag followed by F0 and 4 E's. F0 E 4 times, right? That is the hex code for our color. And what we're going to do is after the parentheses, we click dot generate. And inside that generate function, we're going to pass the tag underscore text variable to it. So essentially what this line of code does is say, give me a word cloud visual of width 1600, height 600, background color of this hex code, and generate it from this tag text long phrase that we did in the previous line of code, right? That's essentially all that line of code is going to do for us.
Just one interjection there.
Sure.
Someone in the chat just mentioned in line 12, I think he spelled subset wrong. So just in case it caused any problem.
Oh yes, good spot. Thank you for that. Right, so I spelled subset wrong. Thank you. And moving now on to the showing the graphical representation of the word cloud. So you say plt dot imshow. So plt dot imshow. So essentially what this function does, I know we haven't passed any variable status yet, right? It's taking displaying the image on this segment of our visual, this Python visual, and it's saying, please plot this figure here. And what we're going to do is pass these two variables, right? WC, which is the word cloud variable, comma, interpolation is equal to bilinear. So I know it seems a bit daunting, right? But let me just break it down for you. plt.imshow is saying, hey, I would like to tap into this segment of my visual. Everything that renders a part of my visual without that padding or without that white space. So that's where the plt.im show is coming in. It's just tapping into that segment of where that visual is coming without any padding. In there, I'm passing this WC variable to it, which is the actual word cloud generated image there. And interpolation is equal to bilinear. That simply means don't make it blotchy for me. Make it that the different colors flow into one another, right? Don't make it like outdated sort of visual. Just make all the colors flow nicely into one another. That's simply what this function does, right? I know it seems a bit daunting, but don't be fearful. And after that, what we're going to do is say plt dot access, and we're going to say off. We don't want any labels showing up our access. So that's essentially what we're going to do. Plt dot access, open and close parentheses, the quotes in them as well, off. And we're going to generate a title now, our second to last line of code, plt.title, similar to the above. And we're going to say word cloud, just for simplicity, right? Word cloud. We're going to do additional functionality. We're going to change the font size, right? So comma, font size is equal to 16. And then we're going to say y, the letter y is equal to 1.05. So I'm just going to explain this as well, right? Give me a title named word cloud, a font size of 16, and the y value of 1.05. This y value pushes up the the title a bit upwards into the visual itself, right? That's all that y variable is telling that function. And last but not least, plt.show. And we need this again, just reiterating. Sorry for sounding like a broken record, but if you don't run this last line of code, your visual will not be created. It is imperative. This last line of code is imperative for us. Again, we open for the best. No errors. If there are any errors, well, I'm very sorry. No ice cream for anyone. Right, so cool. So we get the word cloud form there. Not quite center, but that's okay, right?
Chance you could just send the code in the chat.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look back at the pixels. The width seems a bit off, right? So let me just make sure I typed in the correct
Could also play around with like you see the font size, the different hex with the colors and those things, and see what you get. That's all in the exploration of it too.
Okay, so it is rendering a bit smaller compared to our demo dashboard, but that's okay, right? We just have to play around with the visual itself. Right, so essentially this word cloud is created here, showing the popularity of the different comments persons would have commented on for each particular movie in question, right? I'll just go back over to the presentation. It shows a bit nicer here. There was one other visual, but just for the essence of time, it will be one of our takeaways from the seminar. Before I move on, I'll just give the audience a couple minutes for any queries.
Anybody has any questions in the meantime?
Yeah,
Also,
sorry.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, also, I just wanted to let you all know folder number 4. I'm sorry, I've itemized everything. So the full like dashboard that he would have done, it's there for you all in that folder, the final product. So you all could also check that out as well, right? It's within the bigger folder.
Yeah. So I know to see it in person was a bit difficult, and we do apologize about that. But we, as Dr. Addison said, in the folder, you could download the finished article, and you could also take a look at the the Python visuals, as well as there are many other visuals that were native to Power BI as well, right? Which we didn't get to touch on in our seminar today.
Okay, so I know you showed us like a particular workflow using Power BI and then using Python to do the illustration. Is that the best workflow, or is it more efficient to say, here's what, once you like invest the time to learn Python and like from collecting the data to transforming it, to analyzing it, and then to illustrating it, do you think it's more efficient to upfront investment in learning Python and just doing that workflow, or do you think it's better to say, here's what, use the process that you showed us and stick with that? Like which one is the best way forward?
Right. So really good question, right? So what my suggestion would be is to learn Power BI first, because there's a lot of native functionality for dashboard builders to get access to. And for me, I would find that Power BI in itself would create the native functionality is suitable for the majority of persons. By using Python, it's giving you the extra 1%, 2% really, right? So my advice would be start with Power BI, the basics, keep repeating over and over, use different data sets as well. And then the code that we have shown before with matplotlib and stuff is really the run-of-the-mill sort of code. So once again you show one visual, you could keep repeating that code base over and over again, right? So it's really muscle memory. For first-time viewers, yes, it may seem a bit daunting, but plt.imshow and plt.show is really repeating lines of code, right? So yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay, so just to reiterate what the audience member said, right? Instead of using different scripts for Python, could we use one script with all the code that pertain to different visuals and let it show from there? Unfortunately, the answer is no, right? Because I'll just illustrate visually as well, right? So each different script really and truly is a different visual. So by you running multiple code bases together, you are gonna, I'm not even sure how that might render. It might just even throw an error, to be honest, because of the segregated nature of that Python functionality there as well. We really and truly could only run one visual on a script, or vice versa, right? One script on one visual. Yeah. Yeah. Power BI. Right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Right. So just for the persons online, I believe what the audience member had a query with is that one of the libraries weren't being recognized in Python, right? And that's very common. We really need to go to the path, the address path in we had it in our requirements PDF as well, but it's really just to go to that specific path and to download the libraries from there. Many times the errors come up because Power BI doesn't recognize those Python libraries. It's a very common error to have. Well, it's really and truly just going to that address and doing that pip install And when you do pip install, you just make sure your work is saved. And after it installs, you just reopen Power BI desktop again. It should recognize from there. Yeah.
I think we have someone in the chat asked, okay, let me just clear this up. Somebody asked about the steps following on without the recording. Now we have the full slideshow for you all in the agenda. It's just a link to click on that you could see which activities were done in which parts of these segments. There was another one about, does Power BI have powerful visualizations that aren't in Excel, but you highly recommend to know? If you could give any example.
Good question. I'm just gonna scan through a bit real quickly, right? So yeah, right off the bat, we have the map visual. It's really a map, I think, is associated with Google. So we could drag and drop GPS coordinates onto that map visualization. You could have sales data. You could have anything that coordinates with GPS coordinates, and you'll really see it in terms of areas, different geographical areas having different colors of intensity based on different values, right? So that's one useful feature that's not, I don't believe that's in Excel. We also have a decomposition tree. So that decomposition tree is actually in the package we have, the finished Power BI dashboard. There are many others here. So the card, the KPI feature, and there's one more, right? The tree map, I believe is a tree map visual. So there's a couple that's not really, I don't think it might be easy to create it in Excel, but it's pretty straightforward in doing so in Power BI.
Okay, and I think one more question in the virtual space. Just going off a tangent, they said, are there any other mandatory software applications that you recommend individuals are proficient in if you are trying to pursue a career in data analytics?
Right. So very good question. And I believe Dr. Addison already prepared that for us in the folder as well, right? So we have, I'm just gonna see if I could get the materials there, right? Just to show the folder.
Yes.
So right, in the folder, I think it's
The resources.
resources, right? So the resources has a whole list of materials. As we mentioned, our journey is not just this alone, right? It's a continuous learning, and with these materials, it's really, really good. We could follow along and expand our learnings as well.
Yeah. So the with data science, there's an essentials sheet with some terminologies for those of you who probably now want to get into data science and understand what that means. The resources sheet is very, very comprehensive. A lot of our mentors put together a lot of great training resources, certifications in not only Power BI, there's also Google Colab, there's MATLAB. I mean, everybody's using some different tool. So you could jump into that and see if you want to kind of get started on some of those. And I would add to what Adir has done here. Are you all familiar with DataCamp? Anybody's familiar with DataCamp? No? Yeah, DataCamp has some really nice beginner activities that I highly recommend for people who just want to understand what's going on with quizzes and these things. So I put some cheat sheets there for the Power BI and for the Python. So that would be a great place to start before you go to things like Coursera and these other places where, you know, if you just want to get your feet wet and kind of see what it's about, then you could make a start there. Anybody else has any questions? One more question I'm seeing in the chat. I'm not seeing any more in person. Data wrangling and the EDA process, exploratory data analysis process, seems important to everything. Which tools would you recommend for it? And before Adir answers that, just letting you all know from a statistician's perspective, since that's really my true background, the majority of time when you're dealing with data, you would spend at least 80% of your time cleaning the data, especially if it's real world data. That's very hard to work with. So, Adir?
Yeah, just like to second what Dr. Addison said there. You really spend about 80% of your time cleaning the data, looking at different statistical outlooks before you delve into implementing any machine learning algorithm, right? So you don't want to, you know, the saying, garbage in, garbage out is really and truly, I know, as it is, right? So we want to make sure all the features we select for our ML tools and the distributions and everything will really be done in EDA before we then, and that itself gives us the idea what ML algorithms to even use at all. So that process is really, really important. And well, just to answer, Python really is a great tool where we could perform EDA as well.
I think that's it for how has it been? I'm looking at the faces. So we would like to thank our presenter very profusely. Adir, please give him a big round of applause.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Right. I mean, he has really done a comprehensive session. I know sometimes these sessions are a little bit harder to manage, and he has done that so patiently and so kindly. So we're really, really happy to have had him to be able to facilitate this session with you all. And of course, for those of you who feel a little bit out of sorts, if you missed anything, that's okay. I still go through webinars and miss a lot of things myself. So I'm happy to report that Santa will drop the recording for you all in your emails once we get through with it. Really, really happy that you all had this experience. So Adir has his information there on the, his personal information if you would like to contact him. Yeah. And then we have our social media information there, and all of this is for you inside of your folder. So Adir, do you want to tell them any parting words before we close off the session?
Yeah, so my name Adir Suchit. Thank you all so much for following along. I know it was really a lengthy process, and I hope I was very helpful today with you all. And it really means a lot, with this opportunity to impart knowledge. And as I said, we may start from different places, but it's not really about that, right? It's a journey we are on, and we're all here to learn, and that's the most important aspect. I'd like to thank Dr. Addison and the women in data science community as well. I represent them today on behalf of them. So a huge thank you to them and the other key members and groups as well, right? So thank you all so much for your time today.
Yes. And before we fully close off this session, I must tell you all, this could not have happened without the collaboration and production of a few different persons, besides the main persons that you all saw in front with the flyers and everything, WIDS, IEEE, and of course, the CTN network. We also have behind the scenes to be able to, I think you all have seen these guys here for the majority of the session working extremely hard. Could we give them a round of applause, please? Really, really. They made this hybrid session possible, and to be honest, I am so impressed with their work to be able to reach everyone in the region, Caribbean, and so forth. Really, really thankful to them. We also have our helpers here, our IEEE team, mentors, etc. Also the caterers who provide a lunch for the in-person participants, and of course, virtual lunch for the virtual participants, and dinner, lunch, dinner, breakfast, wherever you are. And of course, first of all, thankful to the university for providing the space and for giving us the space today. I'm a proud alumni or alumnus of the university for many years. I feel like I practically live here. So we're really, really thankful to the UE St. Augustine campus for allowing us to be able to do this, and in the Faculty of Engineering as well. I hope I didn't miss anybody. My own mentors who are here supporting all of you. Thank you to all of you for being here. If I missed anyone, I'm very sorry. But also to the participants for taking the time out to be here, and you all network with each other, get to know each other, continue to be kind and help each other along the way. Just before we leave, I think Mr. Tariq, special thing I should mention is I taught Tariq a few years ago. I'm not that old. He's my former student. Oh yeah, so just mentioning social media pages. I will drop this little document for you all in the chat as well. For the WIDS network, you could go to the next slide. Then the IEEE, I know some of you all mentioned, I think, yeah. And then the IEEE, well, Tariq is going to come and talk to you all about how to get connected there as well.
Thank you, Dr. Addison. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. Those that are online, we had 266 persons registered from 23 countries. About 53% of them were women, the remainder being men, or rather not saying their genders. In terms of participation, we had just over 30 persons in the room and 120 online. So that's great. So please give yourselves a round of applause for being active participants. So, what's next? IEEE, a bit busy this month. We are having another event next Saturday, which is in the room right across the corridor from here, which we're calling STEP. This is mainly designed for students and young professionals in engineering and the science and technology field. STEP stands for Student Transition and Elevation Platform, which is keenly designed to help students step out of the role of a student and that of a young professional. So if there's anyone interested in joining, it's from 9 to 12 next Saturday, right here in UE in room 101 next door. So if you're interested, you could scan this QR code and we'd love to have you there. Not really as technical of a capacity building such as this one, but more focused on the non-technical and networking side of things. So if you're interested in networking in anyone in the ICT and engineering fields, come out, join us, network and connect. So yeah, that's it from me. And Gabby, on behalf of CTU.
All right. So good afternoon again, everyone. So as we come to a close today, again, I want to express my sincere thanks to each of you for being present here today. I think that your presence, your engagement, shared insights, I think that's what makes gatherings like this meaningful and impactful, right? So I think that I want to personally extend a personal invitation to all of you to become a part of the CYN network. So whether you're a student, a professional, an organization, there's a place for you in the CYN. So I'm waiting for the trick to put, okay, right. So here's the, the QR code. Y'all could scan and join our WhatsApp chat to get, all the other details. All right. So once again, I thank you guys and the organizers, importantly, to for being here today. And let's continue to innovate, collaborate, and create a brighter digital future for the youth in the Caribbean. So I thank you and I hope to see you guys again very soon. All right. So thanks everybody and reach home safely. Okay,
That's it. So thank you all for coming and please stay connected with us on all our social media pages, etc. And enjoy your lunch, breakfast, dinner, wherever you are. So take care and until the next one, stay connected and we will send out the recordings to you all and hopefully post it on YouTube as well.